Wano is the worst arc ever. The main characters are all almost assassinated, the antagonists are as competent as men who pull down their pants to pee in a urinal, the world building is terrible and hurts past and future One Piece, the fights are dry and weightless, the plot breaks under the smallest bit of scrutiny, and the final message literally makes no sense with a basic sense of media literacy. Let me explain. This video has been forever coming. It has taken me literal decades to write this properly. I have started and dropped about 3 different Wano critiques, but I'm here to tell you straight, honest to God, this arc is fucking crazy. I have never seen such a bloated piece of pork in my life. Wano is the worst, and I mean the worst arc I have ever seen ever. Matter of fact, this is the worst thing of anything I have ever seen. My least favorite things are probably AOT, Code Geass, and Dexter, but Wano takes the cake on actually enraging me. If you think Wano is good, the best arc in One Piece, or simply not that bad, please watch until the end. This video has been a long time coming. Please bear witness to the dick I'm about to give this arc.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
Before we even step foot into Wano, please recognize nothing about this arc wasn't deliberate. Oda and everyone working on One Piece wanted you to come into this arc with the highest expectations possible. The entire time skip was building up to this point. Doflamingo was a step to Wano. Kid got captured by Kaido. The Minks and shit made an alliance to fight against Kaido and Wano. Big Mom was coming into Wano. Look at all the hype tool Oda uses. Some people genuinely say you had too high expectations from Wano and you got let down by yourself. That's not the case though. Expectations are born from the series. If One Piece and subsequently Wano weren't supposed to be great, everyone will be expecting some Sakamoto Days shit. Previous arcs and later arcs retroactively affect Wano, and this will come to permeate so many talking points we'll get into. This video will also only cover the manga. I may put the anime on screen for simply visual references or visual flair, but I am only actually reviewing the manga. This video was made purely with the manga's intentions, and I have not seen all of the anime because who the fuck has time for that? This video will also be fast paced, so let's keep up. This is a retroactive viewing of Wano that will take all story context into light.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
The opening chapter of Wano is chapter 909 where we see seppuku, literally in fact. But first, on Fink's Island, we see Marco and Catboy talk. They say some nonsense, but it ends with Marco having a message to Luffy. This is where we get into the first problem in Wano. It is very shocking, I know, that we literally are in the first couple of pages and we have an immediate problem, and a big one at that. Marco, being one of the major players in the war, the Summit War, good friends with Ace, and again reminded to Luffy that he even exists in Zou, let's truly think about this moment and who Marco is. Before we even see Wano, Marco tells the audience that he has a message to Luffy. But guess what? They never interact within the main storyline of Wano. The flashback after the curtains are closed is just arbitrary damage control because you immediately see the expectations of an actual interaction, but this never happens. So yeah, Oda just messed up here. I think he just forgot he wrote this, and when he remembered, it was already too late. So again, this is not a plot hole, it's just wasted potential. It's just an airball on the writer because they didn't make something happen that they said was whatever. We jump into Wano and see the Straw Hats working their jobs or whatever, and we get a flashback saying the Straw Hats must hide their identity in order to not let Kaido and etc. in on their plans. This is another problem. This doesn't matter. As we'll find out soon, Orochi is an idiot. Kaido doesn't care about any plans or whatever, and the Straw Hats hiding their identities are literally useless. This entire narrative of hiding your identity and masking up so people don't know it's you functionally wouldn't change anything about the arc. Nobody is in danger because of their identity being leaked. It doesn't actually matter, which means it's just a wasted idea and or nonsense. After that, Zoro is about to commit seppuku, and we get treated to a not so prominent idea in Wano. A samurai's true worth is in his death. What does this mean though? Well, we'll get into it, but it doesn't mean much. We do get this orphan panel of Zoro though. The Straw Hats climb the waterfall to Wano because of magic, and then they all just sink. It's never really explained how they all survive, but I'm sure it's perfectly logical and natural to have the impenetrable fortress of Wano be infiltrated by rookie pirates who don't know what they're doing. A monkey carries a glick. Why'd I write that? Why'd I write that? A monkey carries a glick on him, then we meet Otama. I actually like her. She's funny, has a good relationship with Luffy and the crew, and is generally nice as well. Otama gets saved by Luffy, then she treats him to a meal that only she gets to eat because of her birthday. Because she is starving so bad, she drinks river water to soothe her hunger and ends up being poisoned by it. Cocksucker, yes, we'll call him Cocksucker because he ended up destroying the entire arc once we get there, tells us that Otama chooses to live in that place because of Ace. Well done stuff here by Oda because we know Ace already went to Wano. Cocksucker says she's been waiting a long time for someone. As far as I know, it could be Luffy, Momo, or Kinemon. This isn't really answered and is more inferred, but still not a real answer despite being one of the most first main mysteries introduced in this arc. So definitely bad writing in my book. Afterward, we immediately see Basil Hawkins come and start flexing. Saving that for later, Cocksucker explains the lore behind X Drink burning down villages and Ace washing upon Wano. Luffy sets out to go get some aid for Tama and he takes the Nidai Katetsu with him. Cocksucker makes a big deal about this as well as Oda writes a whole ass panel bringing up its significance. Luffy then says the sword sounds familiar and then that's all about that. One might expect that in the land of samurai, a famous blade being shoved down our throats would be more plot relevant, but Oda doesn't really care about writing. I swear though, the more we get into this arc, the more it will be realer criticism than just, this isn't the most important thing in the arc, therefore mid. If the Nidai Katetsu was going to be irrelevant in all of Wano, why even have Luffy? The blade is also cursed, but like I say in my Mihawk video, cursed blades and blades in general have anti-world building assigned to them. Luffy runs out and learns how fucked up Section 8 is before finding Zoro. Hawkins links up with them and we get some battles. Low-key unimportant, Zoro and Luffy just start throwing jabs at Hawkins and vice versa. They're not really about the smoke anyways. We cut to a tea house and we see this freaky ass sumo wrestler try to get into Kiku's pants. We learn the sumo wrestler's name is Can Can. Tama gets fed, then gets captured while Zoro and Luffy give chase. Law finds out that Luffy's in Wano, then tries to stop him before any trouble is caused. Again, why? By the end of Act 1, Kaido and everyone else already knows Luffy is in Wano, so what's the point? And why wouldn't a crew follow their captain? We get maybe Conqueror's foreshadowing in the beginning of chapter 915, then boring. Luffy fights Can while Law is getting stalled out because Beppo ate poisonous fish. Very glad to know our heroes are very competent eating from a poisonous well. Hawkins runs after Luffy and the gang while Luffy and the gang try to bring food to Okabore Town. Before that, there's a scene where Kiku tells Luffy that if he hurts Hold'em, Jack will come to waste the entire town. Luffy knocks the shit out of Hold'em and I think Jack doesn't do anything. Law masks up to go stop Hawkins and it seems mighty interesting that Law's internal dialogue says that he needs to restrict all information. Again, why? Things move forward and we get a good panel from Luffy saying that he will make Wano a country where people can eat as much as they like. Before we get into the meat of Wano, I want everyone, everywhere to please pay attention to these two pages. In the first page, we see the children of Wano being lied to and fed misinformation. They believe that a closed nation is bad and that Orochi is the hero of Wano. Oh my god, remember this shit indefinitely. We meet Kyoshiro and he instantly starts chatting about a 20-year-old prophecy from Toki. It doesn't really make sense to me in the story for him to say that, but let's just say he's drunk, I guess, whatever. Next, we get a pretty good twist that was foreshadowed and made sense at the time. Before we get into the twist, Zoro, Luffy, and Kiku were all riding on the back of Dog Boy. When they arrive at the castle, Zoro is literally magically fucking gone. Let me ask, why do you guys think that is? It's because if Zoro were here when he heard this line, he would have pried for more answers, and he would have essentially crashed out on the crew. We already went over it in Water 7 that Zoro would be the first person to leave if Luffy randomly accepted crew members' disrespect. To me, Oda knows he fucked up here, and that's why Zoro conveniently gets lost magically on the back of an animal without Luffy or Kiku noticing. Kinemon and the gang have moved through time. Ooh.
Give it to me, Chandler. I want it all.
Chapter 920 is titled For Love of Odin. An important note to remember because as you will come to find out, the Skybbers only care about Odin. They do not care about Wano or anything like that. They just want to avenge Odin. Kinemon starts talking to the crew about how Odin got down when he was younger. He mentioned how Odin was able to beat the demon child known as Ashura Doji. I want to bring up this double spread. How bad is the pacing of any series to where there are 3 different drastic emotions being displayed by the same characters in one page? It is just a blatant attempt at making newborn born readers feel any and every emotion for Oden without actually earning it. Anyway, Kinemon explains the whole time skipping things. I promise, everything he mentions here, like the castle burning, dog and cat arguing, even them running to the castle will be touched upon later. Kinemon just says they need information and etc. carry on a raid and the fire festival in 2 weeks. Very cool. Kiku then explains how people actually believe Kaido is a god who protects the land of Wano. Even in the end of Wano, Kaido sort of protecting it is somewhat true. Please remember this for later. Kinemon also explains that he put Frankie and Robin on jobs helping them get closer to their goals. We get a sort of funny picture from Sanji. Ashura Doji shows up to Okabore town stealing the food that Luffy gave to them. By now, 20 years have passed and Ashura Doji has seen that someone is actively trying to help Wano. Does he assume the prophecy is true because he has no reason to believe the opposite? Or does he steal all the food from the people and go to kill some random old lady? The old lady mentions Toki's words and Ashura Doji gets agitated. So again, he was really gonna kill some random bitch for no reason despite knowing that 20 years later, Wano is receiving help and the prophecy is true. Definitely not terrible writing and definitely makes total sense. Just to say it again so people understand how Oda does not know how to write. Ashura Doji knows firsthand that Toki did send the scabbers 20 years ahead. Despite knowing this and 20 years being the case, he still steals from the people of Wano and likely, since we have this one inference to go off of, kills the innocent people. Anyway, Jack shows up and he fights Ashura Doji. What a high level battle! Thank you for telling us, Oda. I'm so glad you're able to show it as well. Ashura Doji is able to damage and hold his own against Jack. Base Jack. Kaido comes down while drunk and here is where we get to the peak of Wano. After talking for a bit, Kaido gets lied to by Hawkins and blows up Oden's castle. A little convenient, but sure. Kaido blows up Oden's castle and Luffy immediately jumps into action. Luffy's demeanor here is literally great. He is entirely serious and believes that all his friends could have just died. He starts hitting Kaido with lefts and rights, and as soon as Kaido goes to stand up, Luffy gets one shot. Law looks to save him, but again, Hawkins puts a stop to it to confront Law for the second time. Besides that, Luffy knocks some people out with his haki, and Ashura Doji says that looks like Lord Oden's special trick. Ashura Doji not knowing about Conqueror's haki is weird, but it's weirder that he says Lord Oden. That reveals the connection to the family, and again, calls into question, why the hell is he actually stealing and killing from the people of Wano? We see that the gang all dodged the blast breath because of Shinobu, and Kiku has something special to say. That never that is never brought up again, by the way. Law also escaped from Hawkins again off screen, and Hawkins says he was chased down Law. I wonder what's the point in having Hawkins in Act 1 and actively making him a threat to the Alliance if it doesn't do anything later, right? Like, I mean, that surely wouldn't happen, right? Cut to see Luffy in prison. The guards throw poison fish into a cage. I don't know if I should go on an autistic rant about how this is one of the stupidest things in Wano now or save it for later, but just know this right here is incredibly stupid. Try to remember this for later as well. Act 1 ends with Luffy and Kid in literal parallels saying they'll get Kaido. Oh my god, this shit is horrible. Act 1 is the peak of Wano, but despite that, it still has a fuck ton of flaws simply because of the later story of Wano, making half of the shit mentioned or done here meaningless. The one good moment I can also count on and look back on fondly is Luffy taking charge as a captain. He kinda argues Law, saying that if he beats Kaido now, then it's all over, and they don't even know if their crews are alive at the moment. Just some raw shit from Luffy, I can't lie. I also like his dynamic with Tama and her connection to Ace, even if it's a little contrived and a little superficial. It feels like Harry and Peter in a way.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
We'll be skipping through a lot of Act 2. I just need to get to Act 3 because not only is it long as fuck, all the good parts are in there. This video is not a recap or a breakdown chronologically of Wano, it is just an analytical revisit on what the arc fails to do. As Act 2 begins, we get some more beautiful pacing. Ashura Doji and Dog begin to clash swords. We cut ahead into the middle of the fight. We don't see the beginning at all, but Dog and Ashura seem to be getting at each other's necks. Would this mean that Dog would also be comparable to Jack in some way? I hope it makes a lot more sense later on. We cut away and we see the aftermath of the fight. So we see a fight, but we don't see the beginning nor ending. Amazing pacing. Thank you, Oda. Anyway, despite being knocked out and dragged into prison by his dick and balls, Chopper thinks Luffy will be completely fine. His spirit never breaks and he heals fast or something. Please remember this blind faith Chopper has in Luffy for later. We get Queen and King designs and I actually like them a lot. We then get a mention of Kamazo and the Witching Hour boy, who is essentially just Robin Hood. These are the two weirdest things in Wano. We were originally led to believe that the witching hour boy was Yasui. It is actually revealed to be Denjiro, and that maybe Yasui just lied to die with the name. The thing is, who cares? Like, why mention it like this if it's only going to be convoluted and doesn't really matter to the plot that much? The same thing with Kamazo. Kamazo is this killer who was apparently doing GTA missions for Orochi. The thing is, we only see this later when he has to kill Toko. Why not introduce him by killing someone who owed money to the government or something? He's literally introduced as a random serial killer, so the development of him being someone else and doing things unique for his motivations feels entirely random and shoehorned in, like a retcon almost. This could be a nitpick, but it's only a nitpick because, again, this shit doesn't matter to the story of Wano. Why is it inside the story at all when it doesn't need to be? Luffy and Kid are competing in prison. They both have sea stone cuffs on, yet they are completely portrayed to be equals in the scene. I really do hope they remain equals throughout the story and Luffy doesn't absolutely hawk them because he's the main character. There's this random funny panel while they're eating that I want to mention. Oda thinks it's cool to have Luffy and Kid 2v1 some random fodder with a retard smile fruit. Yes, Oda, we definitely needed 4 pages all about this. Oh, more seriously, this is just bad pacing. I will highlight every single instance of this because these are deliberate decisions. Mangakas get 4 hours of sleep every day just to deliberately put shit like this in their manga. I talked about it in my AOT video, but just like Isayama, Oda knew exactly what he was doing when writing every page of this arc. They know when shit doesn't make sense or when it could be better, they just don't care. For example, in Act 1, there's some random comment about how it's best that the enemies don't know the entire crew is here, as if there aren't less than a dozen niggas on the crew. Let's ignore everything Zoro already did. It is literally uncanny as fuck for any crew not to be with their captain at any given time. Anyway, we get more time wasting with Sanji and Frankie again fighting fodder. The pacing in this arc is just straight up terrible. This chapter was technically 16 pages, but let's cut out the cover and the end page. That means it's only 14 pages. 5 out of those pages were dedicated to fodder street thugs that East Blue Luffy would have stomped on. Then the rest were spent on introducing Toko and hyping up Komurasaki. After reading this chapter, I hope no one says the pacing of Wano isn't objectively awful. Beside that, Luffy's in jail and he gives the old dude some tickets for food and talks with Raizo about undoing the handcuffs. Kid says how he was trying to 1v3 the Yonkos before getting tossed in jail and how he will be the one to defeat Kaido. Please remember this, guys. Please remember. Oda then puts up about 7 pages to tell us that Komurasaki was finessing niggas in Wano like it was Atlanta or something. I don't know what's worse, the fact that it took 7 pages to tell us this, or the fact that, again, someone whose true motivations are to restore Wano are taking from its people for selfish reasons. I guess not entirely selfish, but still. One can argue they're stealing from bad people of Wano to give to the innocent and needy, but there is barely any evidence of that. Plus, what type of mental gymnastics is there to steal from people who suffer under the same government to give out to the people who suffer from the exact same oppression, but I guess they eat a little less, so here's some more money. Everyone in Wano is trying to make a living and survive under Orochi. It doesn't make it any better if Komurasaki is doing the preferred option. Targeting people who are morally gray doesn't make your actions any less morally gray. This isn't Dexter, bruh. Oda then reveals that Komurasaki is Hiyori. I'm confused if Oda's intentions. Frankie crashes out on his carpentry job. Funny scenes, not gonna lie. We then cut to Zoro and Yasui, and this is why I emphasize on the bad pacing of Wano. You could have actually showed Yasui and Zoro meeting and draw Zoro fighting off fodder to protect Yasui instead of Frankie and whatever the fuck Luffy was doing. Yasui says some gay shit, then we move on. Orochi meets with some CP0 agents, then we get a face reveal. Terrible design. I don't want to talk about Orochi any more than I have to because he is the biggest shitbag in this whole arc. If the villain of the story arc has a design like this, how the hell can you take him seriously at all? Page 1, X-Drake, and Hawkins all come to the flower capital to dismantle Soba Cook. Hawkins says that he came in search for a particular man. I hope he's not talking about himself. We get some good scenes with Zoro and the people of Ebisu Town. Despite them being good scenes, the entire point of endearing main characters to random unknown people is to make the character extra motivated in protecting the land and freeing them from the villains. Let's see where that goes. Sanji uses his rage suit to fight Page 1. It's crazy how Page 1 doesn't recognize Sanji, but sure, whatever. Big Mom washes up on Wano. As she wakes up, she gets amnesia. Amnesia plots are infamous in media as fugazi drama that only exist out of laziness and bankrupt creativity stats. 7 Deadly Sins, as an example, has about 10 different amnesia plot lines, and one of the best twists in the series is literally just a I made everyone forget. Basically, this is just lazy writing, as simple as that. It's lazy writing on one of the most important characters and concepts in the series, a lowlight on Oda's writing that is only getting darker as Act 2 progresses. Moving Moving on, Orochi is still having his party or whatever, and he starts screaming about how you need to eliminate enemies with overwhelming force. Something like making sure you never give them a chance to strike back. Might as well get into it now, but Orochi's a fucking retard, and I damn near want to call Oda the same thing. Orochi is saying that never give your enemies a second chance to strike back, but the nigga is keeping Kawamatsu alive while saying this. Kawamatsu is literally in prison. He knows that for a fact. He also knows Ashura Doji is still alive, but he doesn't kill them. He can literally say, Jack, let's get all the Tobiropo members and jump them. Or, Jack, go slice that nigga, backdoor him, something. But he doesn't. Kamazo, killer. Hey, if you kill Ashura Doji, kill Kawamatsu, because I'm scared of them apparently, then I'll free Kid. Do something. Orochi is such an idiot, he doesn't do that. And it's not characterization, bro. It's not characterization to have stupid people do stupid things for the story to happen. It's the writer being stupid by writing these things and not having it paid off. Anyway, that was all off script. This arc is just fucking terrible, bro. It just makes no sense that he captured Kawamatsu in order to poison him when he is not only scared shitless of the scabbards coming back, but also believes enemies need to be destroyed to the point where they have no chance of retaliating. The only reason why Kawamatsu is alive is because of Oda. Oda either forced Kawamatsu alive because he has the pen in his hands, or he forced Orochi to be a bumbling retard in order to facilitate Kawamatsu being alive. But I believe the latter is more fitting because Oda admitted there were only supposed to be 4 scabbards, and he just made more and more and more. Just have 4 scabbards and have the other 5 die to Orochi or something. It would literally motivate the characters way more to save Wano and even make the antagonists feel more threatening. In short, Oda doesn't know how to write. Robin tries to save Toko from Orochi, meanwhile we get the funniest scene in all of Wano. Chopper tells Big Mom that she could get some food in udon. This is just crazy. Chopper is scared Big Mom will get her memory back, so his idea to combat that is sending her to a place where his captain is. If you're scared about her killing you once she gets her memory back at any moment, why would you send her to your captain to almost guarantee a squad wipe? We get a funny scene between Big Mom and Chopper, then we get one of Oda's biggest airballs ever. Oda explains the different regions of Wano, but this literally doesn't matter at all. Why have 6 different places if we don't visit 2 of them and the rest aren't plot relevant at all? World building fluff is cool sometimes, but in this case, it just seems like entirely wasted potential. Kiku tells Momo not to say Tsunachi. Her reason behind this is the same reason why your mother tells you to do the dishes, because she says so, I guess. Law reads that Kid broke out of jail off screen. Queen comes to Udon and we get a funny moment. Sanji saves the ladies from ex-Drake and everyone, but we find out that Beppo was captured off screen. Thank God for off-screening interesting things, am I right guys? Zoro starts fighting some random cocksucker. The fat guy starts spouting some facts about Ryuma and Wano and shit. He says Wano was once known as the city of gold. This is just random nonsense, by the way. This never gets expanded upon and is one of the biggest drop plot points in the arc. Killer then pulls up and says that Zoro is Zorojuro, a criminal from the flower capital. This makes no sense in context. Naturally, Killer knows who Zoro is and has met him before. This is just Oda trying to make some story coherence but accidentally make the story incoherent. Because again guys, Oda does not know how to write. Killer wouldn't say Zorojuro, he would just say, oh shit, is you Zoro, sorry. I gotta kill you though. Zoro starts fighting Killer and we get a mention by Zoro on how he's a pretty tough fighter. This should be the standard by the way. We know Zoro is strong but nerfed at the moment because of his 3rd sword being gone, so him giving compliments to another person after going back and forth holds a bit of weight. I say this for a reason because as I demonstrated earlier with Ashura Doji and Jack, so many characters just say some random shit like, oh wow, they're so tough, without it actually being felt on or off screen. They just say that because the writer wants to artificially inseminate you with tension even though he is infertile. Zoro beats Killer, but then falls asleep because, yeah. We get great Oda tone shifting with Shinobu making a joke, then immediately crying to get sympathy. Yasui confronts the gang and Hiyori reveals herself to Zoro. Hiyori talks about how Kawamatsu raised her and how she apparently doesn't know if Ashura Doji or Dendro is alive. Say it with me now. Oda does not know how to write. The bitch is just lying here. She knows Denjiro is Kyoshiro. The entire reason she is alive right now is because Kyoshiro, who is Denjiro, faked her death so Orochi didn't actually kill her. This is just Oda lying, but it makes no sense. The only way it could make sense is if Hiyori couldn't trust Zoro and or didn't want to reveal Denjiro's real identity for some reason. That doesn't work here because Hiyori does trust Zoro as he just saved her life. He comes from outside of Wano so he's not politically involved. And I don't know, he knows Momonosuke is alive? I could argue that she knows Shutomaru is Ashura Doji, but that's irrelevant to the fact that she just lied here for no reason. This is again more of Oda not knowing how to write and the story being lost because he just didn't want to say the answer. He just didn't want to reveal some shit. But it breaks the story logic. Luffy is in prison. That's pretty much the entire chapter. Brook meets up with Zoro. I honestly like the more mature and direct Komurasaki personality, where she goes, "I'm a daughter of a samurai. I won't disgrace myself. I'm no weak woman," etc. This new Hiyori feels so weird to me. She acts all smiley and innocent, talking about, did that get you excited? Because the idea of people sleeping with me always get excited with that idea. And it's just so weird. It seems like age regressing. Anyway, we cut to Yasui's death, and this scene is unironically really good. It saves the plot, and the ending page with Zoro finding out why they're all laughing and smiling is really good work from Oda. However, I must say, the way this is presented, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume these fake smiles will be relevant later in a plotline around removing them and making them real, especially since Orochi deliberately gave the people of Wano smile fruits just to fuck with them. But hey, what do I know? We then get one of the most embarrassing moments in fiction. Yasui is shot dead and Toko starts rubbing toad oil on him to heal his injuries. She starts rubbing the fake toad oil that Usopp was selling to the people of Wano. Now I can't say this is bad writing for Wano, for the world building or anything like that, but I deadass hate Usopp for this moment. It never gets brought up again and it just reeks. Zoro and Sanji step in to protect Toko. I must again ask, what is the fucking point in keeping their identities hidden if Zoro is a wanted criminal and Sanji just shows his face to page 1? They are literally on camera right now, but it doesn't matter at all to the plot of Wano. So why the hell did they need to keep their identities hidden or some bullshit like that? It doesn't, doubly so, it wouldn't really matter because Wano is a closed nation, so nobody who was born in Wano would recognize them. Kid comes back to jail. He actually let himself get caught. I wonder what's the point of off-screening Kid breaking out of jail just to send him back to jail for arbitrary reasons. That served to accomplish so much. Queen then calls Luffy and Kid rivals. Surely Kid won't get hawked by Luffy in this arc just for Kid to get one-shot chapters later after the arc is over, right? Some chaos ensues after Yasui dies. Meanwhile, Hawkins and Law are about to scrap. Once more, Hawkins baits Law by having his crew in front of him. He says that Law will go inside the cage without struggle because he has a straw doll of all his crew's lives. He even made plans against Law's abilities by splitting up his crew. That nigga is so much smarter than Todoroki, who literally kept Kawamatsu alive for 13 years. We get like the 7th Sanji gag in this arc, and it really helps for the tone of death and grief. Good job, Oda. Anyway, Big Mom shows up to Udon and her and Queen start fighting over food. No, that is not a joke. Big Mom and Queen, both of our antagonists, start fighting over food. I know One Piece is a goofy manga, I get it, but having too many of these moments really sullied my enjoyment while reading. Even though Luffy and Big Mom has had the most fleshed out antagonist dynamic Luffy has ever had outside of Blackbeard, this comedy moment is genuinely funny. So yay, I'm laughing at this, but nay, this is muddying the waters between Luffy and Big Mom. Luffy and Odu are about to die because of Big Mom smashing the necklaces of doom, but then Luffy breaks the collars and Old Man forces him to defend them from Big Mom's next attack. Big Mom was able to knock out Queen in 2 hits. The fact that dirty, dehydrated Old Man Hyogoro isn't immediately dead here is a huge suspension of disbelief that I'm not willing to withdraw. Queen hits Big Mom in the head, then she gets her memory back. After getting her memory back, she just falls asleep. You can argue Queen knocked her out, but that isn't believable, nor do I want to conclude that based on how happy she is while sleeping. I think Oda just deadass wrote a character to be so mentally perturbed they're able to fall asleep whenever he commands it for the benefit of the plot. Queen then rushes Big Mom out of Udon and leaves only the bare minimum security guards and etc. there. Luffy inevitably breaks out. So what we have here is Big Mom, the person Luffy has had a personal grudge with ever since the start of the time skip, assists the heroes in every possible way. Big Mom literally stopped Kid and Killer from drowning. She also forced Luffy into a situation where he could free himself from the handcuffs and the collar. Then Queen doesn't put any cuffs or collars on. Queen just leaves and allows Luffy, Kid, and Killer to all not be in a cell with a fraction of the guards there. Queen just left 2 known Conquer Haki users in a prison with a faction of security without their cuffs on. This plot is terrible. It screams in the boldest letters possible, nothing the heroes do will ever have consequences because Eiichiro Oda is writing the script. More pacing issues in chapter 948, but it's whatever. There's only 13 pages, but it's filled with shit that can be off screen. Chopper also cures his plague with some shit in his bag. I think it would have been incredibly interesting if he struggled a bit or didn't immediately have a clue. This plague was really nothing major for him, and he was more concerned with Luffy's actions than anything else. Tells me that anything on a similar level shouldn't immediately press him or anything. Oh man, I'm excited for Act 3. Kid also says something funny, so let's read it together. You want to fight against Kaido again? You want to join in with me? Are you crazy? You saw what happened to my partner. I'm sick of the alliance. I don't trust anyone. Consider it a gift that I don't kill you right here. We do things our own way. I'm so excited for Act 3. Ashura Doji joins the alliance like he always was. Hey Ashura Doji, if you knew they would be back in 20 years, why are you actively stealing and killing from the people of Wano? Zoro then says he's going to avenge Yasui's death and he can't forgive Orochi. I also forgot to mention that Zoro somehow got Shisui stolen from him off screen. This makes zero sense logically, but who cares? Oda is just trying to meet a quota with his plot points. And Orochi are talking about how Zoro's getting away. While they talk, Fukudikaru says, in the pirating world, betrayal never goes out of style. Anyway, Big Mom and Kaido start squabbling. Big Mom's sword Napoleon says he's glad Big Mom is back to normal, meaning he was alive the entire time to witness the amnesia, but didn't say anything. Definitely not super convenient, definitely not a super convenient thing that Oda lampshaded. At the prison, Raizo sees that Tama can subdue Smile users. Let's assume Raizo's an idiot. Kiku also sees this happen. Interesting. Ashura Doji gives Kinemon the blueprints to Kaido's mansion, and Kawamatsu destabilizes the situation with Zoro and this big dude. I find it funny that the fox was a companion of a descendant of Ryuma, right? And we all know Zoro looks like Ryuma with the one eye and shit. The fox sees Zoro, a one-eyed swordsman with Shisui, he just thinks, oh, that's some random ass nigga. Wouldn't the fox come to the same conclusion as the other Wano time capsules? Especially since he would know more about Ryuma since he was the right-hand guy to his descendant. Whatever. Zoro gets Enma. We will dive into more of this plot device sword later. You can go watch my Mihawk video if you want to skip to that right now. Law has Hawkins in a blender right now. They start asking questions and shit, and Law escapes not only without killing Hawkins, but with X-Drake allowing Law to go free. I don't know why this is silhouetted, by the way. Would have been better without it, but sure. 5 days left to the festival, and Big Mom and Kaido form an alliance. The numbers also make a mention here, but similar to there only being 4 original scabbards, this is just artificial fluff from Oda that doesn't mean much. Later, Hiyori says she won't meet up and join the others because sentiment is a warrior's weakness. Zoro engages in some sword talk, and we find out that the dude in Zoro's village came from Wano. The blade that he has had for the entire story, the Wado Ichimonji, was made by the same guy who made Enma, who was in Zoro's village. The way they talk, they make it seem like sword ranks and black blades matter to the story or the people inside, but they don't. The scabbards disembark and Orochi starts plotting some more. I skimmed through a lot of story events simply to get to the literal Act 3 faster because we have a lot to say. I will revisit some of these things when obviously its peak is reached, but just know that Act 2 is the start of the erection. Hiyori straight up lying, Kawamatsu being alive, Zoro getting a sword stolen, Kid's entire character. So many things just happen with no real plot progression or meaningful work being done. When Big Mom gives Luffy, Kid, and Killer get out of jail free cards, literally, are we supposed to be happy, thankful to be reading the story? I didn't mention it earlier, but this entire arc is just a big joke. We need blueprints to Kaido's mansion? Well, Ashura Doji had it the entire time, despite killing people who named the Kazuki and saying that they're not real samurai alive and Wano's finished. We need men? Well, Luffy just got over 3,000 people on her side. We need swords for the men? Well, we just found a whole tombstone full of weapons. Every single point of conflict is solved in breakneck, matter-of-fact speeds. This arc just had every single person not named Yasui face 0 repercussions for their actions. Basically, Act 2 is dog shit, and I can't ever imagine the payoff from dog shit amounting to anything at all, but this is where we are.
Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
Jumping into Act 3, we are confronted with several pump fake air balls. Apparently, no men are at the port, there are no ships, and Orochi knew about everything all along. However, this is all a big lie. I'm gonna read this to you and you let me know what you think. Denjiro explains that 2 lines over the belly is a symbol to remove the midsection of a word. Accompanying this, taking out the middle part of Habnu Minato would make it to be wharf. Kinemon told everyone that it was actually the wharf, but it told his group Toge Port because he sensed there was a spy among them. Because Orochi thought it was another port, he was too late to burn all the bridges and destroy the enemy ships. Oda, what the fuck? Maybe this makes more sense if you're a Japanese reader, but holy shit, that was random nonsense. This word is an anagram for this word, which means to take out every vowel once you get to this other word, which is a symbol for the sun. Therefore, we're supposed to be on the sunniest beach by dawn. Like, nigga, what? That doesn't make any sense to me at all, doubly so because Orochi was too late to destroy the bridges. That's just arbitrary plot shit that the writer contrived. It could have been literally any excuse, but he just said, oh well, they weren't fast enough. LOL. The whole dramatic scene at the beginning of Act 3 is just fake tension because the gang were like 5 minutes late to the party. The silliness of the entire plot point is compounded by the infamous Oda who never thought of that panel. Kinemon then says he felt like he just used up a lifetime of luck and he will likely die in the battle. LOL. Kinemon and the gang get a little excited about the battle and they all scream, let's go avenge Odin. It takes an offhand random fodder guy to say we'll also bring change to Wano today. It's very funny to me that changing Wano comes after avenging Odin. It's totally not like the Scabbards don't really care about Wano, evidenced by Ashidoji stealing and killing Izo who deadass doesn't care and everyone else who screams avenge Odin before anything else. Because these guys start doing pogo tricks on Odin, you have to naturally wonder, what did Odin do, or the opposite, to make these guys love him so much? Before we dive into that dumpster fire of a mess, Kawamatsu goes to attack Kanjuro, and immediately after clashing, Kawamatsu just lets Kanjuro escape.
Somebody like you deserves to be hit in the street by a fucking moving bus.
The Kanjuro twist thing isn't good, by the way. Future context makes this pretty stupid, and while it is foreshadowed, foreshadowing doesn't give something a get out of jail free card. One thing I must mention before getting into the worst flashback of the series is Jinbei showing up to Wano. Number one, even if he is a fisherman, I don't like how anyone and their fucking daddy can show up to Wano completely uncontested. If Wano is gassed as hard to infiltrate, show me that and stop showing me every nigga gets get there with no sweat at all. Number two, it is never explained how the fuck he actually knew they was gonna be there. If he saw the flyer, he must have been on the mainland, and if someone sees some big ass blue fishmen walking around, they will definitely alert the authorities, especially since the people of Wano are known for being prejudiced. Number 3, the ending with Whole Cake was to say we can't fuck with Yonkos without putting our lives on the line. We aren't playing pirate games here. This is the new world and it's sink or swim. Jinbei coming back to Wano with no injuries, war stories, no sad times, no anything, retroactively makes Whole Cake Island's ending infinitely worse. All the drama and the lore attached to Luffy telling Jinbei to meet up with them in Wano and to survive no matter what is immediately gone. Jinbei was essentially having a play date while the crew were grinding in Wano. Yes, I'm aware he was attending to injuries and did a number on the ship and all of these offhand lines that are told. The problem is, if it's off screen, then it doesn't count as legitimate writing. We all expected something dramatic and satisfying from Jinbei staying in Totland, but literally nothing came from it. Holy shit, Wano sucks. Here are 3 funny Raizo panels. Moving on, we have to tackle this flashback. I struggle to actually get into it because oh my god, we're gonna be here for some time. Immediately jumping into the flashback, we get a huge plot hole in Wano. When we are first introduced to Kinemon, he shouts tons of sexist sayings towards Nami. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, in Wano to supplement the idea that Kinemon is sexist or has traditional views on sex and gender roles. In fact, in his youth, where he will be the most brash, he is getting manhandled like a bitch by a childhood friend who is a woman, and this is one of the first things we see. You can even use Kiku to aid this plot hole. Kiku is a woman at heart who likes to be referred to as a man or whatever. I don't know if that's some trans shit or just women presenting masculine traits, who cares? The point is, Kinemon still shouldn't be sexist if Kiku is like their best fucking friend. Oda introduced the character from a traditionally Japanese place being very sexist, but that is very out of character because the character does not have a history of exhibiting such sexism, nor does his location prompt any such ideas, which would be directly implied because of his introduction. This is literally the first chapter of the flashback, by the way. Odin cuts a board that makes Denjiro and Kinemon want to suck his dick. I could buy that since it's old type of Japan and Ronin and Vagabond stuff, but this isn't good enough to justify dying for that man and etc. They meet more Scabbards and they just all love Odin. He cleans up curry and shit, but that's all that we see. More shit happens like 3 minks washing up on shore, but let's get into Odin visiting his father. Odin went to the capital after hearing that his father, the Shogun Sukiyaki, was ill. This was the last time they ever spoke. Again, his father is old and sick, and Odin visited him because of this illness. Whitebeard shows up and they start crewing it up. Odin meets Toki. I have to ask, what's the point of Toki being born in the Void Century? She could have just used the fruit prior or ate it at that time she needed to save the Scabbards. There is a huge connection to Wano from Toki, and so many world building details all point Wano as being the end all be all, but this is literally never brought up again. A big disappointment, I can't lie. Here's where we get into the most garbage parts of the whole story. Sukiyaki is revealed to be in critical condition as he appoints Orochi as the new shogun if Oden isn't back, naturally. However, this is a fake. It is an old woman we'll call Some. She tells us a story that the Kurozumis were all killed and punished because their grandfather tried to poison all the other Kappos. Orochi says that his clan's shame and everything is all because Sukiyaki was born. An obvious message that one expects should be abolished by the end of this arc, right? Some reveals that she has the clone fruit. Despite it never being explained at all, not even being alluded to on the wiki, and Oda still not addressing these incongruities, Some has a pack-a-punch clone fruit because she's able to copy people without touching them. If you want to argue that she has touched them, you literally cannot. That is inherently fallacious to state that something must be true because this is the conclusion. Even weirder is how some people like to argue that this fruit has some magical Death Note properties where she just can imagine herself as the person, as if that's ever explained ever. Even weirder is how Some tells Orochi that her identity doesn't matter, despite being literally a Kazumi. Then she turns into Shiki the Golden Lion. How the fuck does she know Shiki? Conveniently, why is this after God Valley? We find out later in chapter 1049 that the same girl told Kaido to come to Wano after mentioning the other rocks pirates would be making some waves as well. So essentially, some Kurozumi told Orochi to take over Wano and completely manipulated him and groomed him to become shogun. Then, while putting a figurehead in place of Wano's political power, she recruited Kaido to be the strength and muscle behind Wano entirely. But guess what? Some, the woman I just mentioned, is not her name. The bitch's name is Higurushi. While watching this video, why did you not autocorrect my lie of her name? You believed me when I said it's a Some. Do you know why that's the case? Why you just didn't let that happen? It's because Higurashi is shit. The character literally started this entire thing, yet she is so underwritten. I alluded to it earlier, but there is something missing within Wano, a hidden link even. It obviously doesn't make any sense at all to show this woman manipulating Orochi to take over Wano while explicitly showing us that she has met Shiki before, likely. Then we see her manipulate Kaido as well, all for her own gain. Something is missing here. Fans have noticed an odd display of events and plot points here, and they theory craft to say that maybe the Kurozumi massacre never existed and it was exacerbated for some random plot. To me, that is the biggest evidence of Oda completely dropping the ball on this. Nothing about Higurushi makes any sense. How does she know Shiki? How is she able to leave Wano like 3 or 4 times? How is she able to copy Sukiyaki? How is she able to copy Momo? Despite this character creating the entire conflict, she is unironically one of the worst parts of the series, and she should not be inside the story. Beside that, we get some quality stuff with Roger and Whitebeard. Roger is still my favorite character in One Piece, and a lot of this flashback does that work, even though he has a fuck ton of problems. I love the pacing when the crew is like, Oden, we don't trust you, gang. Then they're all parting after one small interaction. Beside that, this is the first time we see the Oden was born to boil scene. Keep this in mind for the end of the arc. On Roger's adventures, we run into arguably the biggest plot hole in this series. Roger hears that Poseidon is going to be born from Neptune. Then he asks the fortune teller, Madame Shirley. Roger specifically asks when will she be born. Shirley says she will be born in 10 years. Let's flash back to Fishman Island when she is hogtied and some kids ask her when Luffy will destroy the island. She says she cannot see at all when her predictions are going to happen. Two options here. Either Charlie was lying to those kids for no reason, or Oda forgot that he wrote that Charlie can't see when her predictions happen. I just don't get how a writer says a character's abilities can't do X, then they make the abilities literally do X. Like, this is what editors are for and shit. This ends up being a major plot hole because once she finds the One Piece, Roger makes huge story-defining decisions based on that knowledge that Poseidon will be born in 10 years. For God's sakes, Roger literally gets himself killed, disbands the crew, and has a son. This is all compounded by the fact that he knew certain details of the world and when Poseidon was going to be born. Obviously, it's a bit vague as Oda intended, but Roger still acted upon the knowledge that he reasonably shouldn't have. But that's not even where we finish. We run into another plot hole. When Oden went back to Wano so Toki could rest and grab the poneglyph inside the castle, he should have saw something. While Oden was gone, Orochi and Old Girl were taking over Wano. By the time Oden even came back to Wano, we saw that there were factories already set up. We also have a statement that said that the death of Sukiyaki was broadcasted throughout Wano. Here's the thing. We know that Sukiyaki this entire time was just under the palace inside the room you need to pass in order to get to the poneglyph. But that is the problem. Oden could not have possibly gotten the poneglyph without seeing his father Sukiyaki there. We know that for a fact that Sukiyaki was in there because he said he only escaped after Oden died. This makes literally no sense. Oden should have seen his dad, point blank, period. Once Oden sees his dad, he knows something is wrong and gets Roger's help to dismantle any force that threatens Wano. Again, the plot doesn't happen. It's honestly been a fucking miracle that I haven't been calling Sukiyaki a cocksucker throughout this entire video, because again, his inclusion, being stuck in that fucking palace, makes the entire plot change. Kaido dies. Two back-to-back plot holes that drastically shape the story as we know it. Oda is on fucking fire. Ironically, we get the best panel in One Piece after all of this. Oden goes back to Wano to find out that fuckery has been taking place. I find it odd that Old Girl can react to a bloodless in Oden, but sure. Oden doesn't do anything here, but it's very interesting how Oden is shocked that his father is alive when seeing Old Girl shapeshift. He then asks Orochi if he actually died to illness or not. Anyway, Oden starts twerking in the streets until he realizes he's working with the snake. Then, he actually goes to kill Kaido. During the fight, it's pretty cool or whatever. My main problem is obviously how Higuruchi has a copy of Momo. This just blatantly shouldn't be possible with common sense. Again, another plot hole. Ironically, in the very next chapter from this moment, the literal first page opens up with someone testing for food poisoning for Momo. Meaning, there's no way in hell Higurashi was able to touch that child's face. It is revealed that Orochi has plans to drive Wano into the ground, and this is all because of sins of Wano and how whatever. It is revealed that Oden did the twerking to make peace, but I can't help but to call Oden retarded. After hearing this Batman backstory about he was prosecuted by random people of Wano and how he wants to make everyone's life a living hell all for revenge, why would you ever think that he would hold up his end of the deal? Oden stands in the pot for an hour as he is sure he will die today. He throws his friends to go open the borders and do something. As they run away, they cry and remember their good times with Oden, and we literally just see their one panel each meeting. Like I said, the justification for all the scabbers dick riding Oden is literally non-existent. The only panels the audience has from majority of its members concerning the relationship with Oden are literally just the panels of them meeting Oden for the first time. Next, to me, this is one of the corniest scenes in the series. The idiot randoms in Wano completing Oden's little joke after he is shot and killed is entirely soap drama to me, especially since we have literally only seen this guy say it one other time and they weren't even around. To close out this horrendous flashback, we get another plot hole that is just Oda not knowing how to write. Basically, Oden loses the fight and is jailed, right? Tell me why this nigga still has his swords. No joke. No riddle, he just blatantly has his swords and is fully capable of freeing himself. He just doesn't. If you want to say Oden's motivations in 20 years or whatever make him want to die or whatever, that's fine. The fact that the beast pirates actively don't take away their swords just shows completely incompetent, low-light writing on their IQ in the story. We know that when Luffy went to jail, they took away his Katetsu, so why the fuck would you not take away Enma and Amino Habakiri? That Shinobu has infinite speed. She was able to run from Fuku Dikaru, get weapons, then catch up to the scabbards while they're all running at top speed. Sure. Next, Kaido teleports from the boiling execution to Oden's castle where he palms Momo like a basketball. Kaido has made it a motivation to destroy the Kozuki bloodline, and when presented with the opportunity to kill this dude, he just throws him to his family and then says, the fire will take him out. Are you stupid, Kaido? This flashback is nothing but rotten. There are way too many plot holes and incongruities for this to be a sensible stream of plot. Large parts of what I said here is simply just Oda writing whatever the fuck he wants and not thinking about it. Most notably the sword thing. Why even include a detail like that? Like, you deadass have to be off a Yurka to do that shit. Anyway, enough of this flashback. We gotta get into the shaft of Wano. We come back to the present and the crew is literally planning their victory party. Crew rolls up to the final battle, literally planning their victory session. Accompanying this with Brook's previous line of I can't imagine losing now, and you definitely have some overconfident protagonists. I definitely hope they meet a rude awakening because Yonkos are a serious threat that have been ruling the seas for years. The gang arrives on Onigashima. Usopp puts some dudes to sleep. Very convenient. While Kinemon sneaks them in with his devil fruit. A smart plan. I don't know why Kid uses it though. The Tobi Roppo are introduced later, and I must say right now, the more you add to the arc, the longer it becomes, and sometimes that is a good thing, like in 1,000 Year Blood War, but if the quality of things added is questionable or simply not good, it feels like utter nonsense. The Tobi Roppo were a good idea, but they're all pretty much weak points within this arc, either from illogical actions, weak fight, retcons, or being held by the plot. The Tobi Roppo are just an ass fucking group. The Tobi Roppo are squabbling, and Who's Who asks if Queen were to die tonight, then who will replace him. I will make sure you do not forget this. The Tobi Roppo designs are fire. Oda hit something nice with this one. Despite their designs being interesting and fitting a strong motif, the characters are garbage. OT is a 5, Page 1 is a 2, Who's Who is a 1, Black Maria is a 4, X-Drake is a 0, and Sasaki is a 1. I will highlight my reasoning as we go over the later plot. Luffy and Zoro start running ahead, and apparently the crew didn't know this until Jinbei said so. Meanwhile, King summons a Tobi Roppo to help chase down Yamato. To be frank, Yamato didn't exist until this chapter came out. Yamato as a character is just one huge headache after being the worst character ever. King says whoever brings back Yamato is able to challenge any of the lead performers. Luffy and Zoro get mad at some randoms wasting food. While this is a good moment for the character of Luffy, this is just a sigh because the context of challenging two different Yonkos and ruining the only advantage you have is just corny. While this happens, Kid notices a poo in the stadium. We also get Queen saying he wants to erase someone and he'll open up a seat in the Tobi Roppo. This makes sense as Who's Who obviously doesn't fuck with Queen. Apu knocks out Luffy with one attack. Luffy gets instantly knocked out as soon as he reveals himself. What does Oda do with this? Consequences maybe? Kid then gets so mad at Apu he doesn't care about his disguise and he goes to punch him. Apu says that it's Kid's fault for expecting any pirate alliance to end happily. There's some corny stuff between Kid, Zoro, Luffy, and Killer, but this again reinforces the parallel between them. Who's Who then looks at all four of them and goes, oh hey, escapees from Udon. Oh well, they're just rats. Sure. He then focuses on finding Yamato above anything else. He says he started enough out of Queen and that there's someone he wants to kill too. Some funny panels despite this being the climax, then Marco comes to Wano. Here, we reach another big plot hole. We are later told that you can enter Wano with Kaido's permission by entering through the waterfall. The Big Mom Pirates are in an alliance with Kaido, so why the fuck are they taking the ghetto route into Wano when they are literally in an alliance? Even more, how did it take 8 days for the Big Mom Pirates to come to Wano again? Everyone can travel to Onigashima in an hour or less, but these guys take over a week to barely climb the waterfall? Hello? This is just one huge, and I mean huge, contrivance to facilitate the alliance's success. Kanjuro meets up with Orochi and tells him the new plan from Kinemon. Dendro goes to chain up Sasaki. It's interesting that Sasaki doesn't get straight up killed as he is strong as fuck, propagates the plagues on Wano, and Dendro has not stressed about killing people before. Big Mom runs after Chopper and Usopp and can't catch them apparently. Luffy runs into Oti. They squabble for a bit, and before Luffy's about to use Gear 4 because he apparently can overpower her with a grip or something, Yamato saves him with a Thunder Bagua. Kanjuro confronts the Scabbards outside of the skull and he just gets folded. I honestly don't know what Kanjuro was thinking. Meanwhile, Kaido explains his plans, and as soon as Orochi starts talking, he cuts off his head. What was that thing about alliances and pirates again? I'm confused. The Scabbards come from behind Kaido, which again makes me ask why the fuck did Kanjuro not tell anyone what was happening with the Scabbards? Even more nonsense, that Cat Viper supposedly knocked Kaido's Bagua from his hand despite Kaido literally having 2 hands on it. Anyway, the war actually starts and Big Mom says she came all this way to Wano so she could kill Luffy. I sure do hope that the most important and fleshed out villain dynamic in the story isn't completely forgotten about. Meanwhile, Kaido says that pirates will betray you when they know you'll lose and they'll abandon you and sail away. This act has featured some of the worst shit in the story of One Piece. The Oden flashback is a complete and utter mess. Kanjuro is a retard, and this is just the beginning of the climax. I promise everything is only getting much worse.
Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
To make up for this arc's horrendous pacing, I will make up my own acts to place into the story. Immediately jumping into Act 4, Big Mama gets rolled out by Frankie and Robin. Even more than this obvious tension removinator is the fact that this action is the only reason why Sasaki is freed. As you will come to find out, Big Mom actively helps the Alliance ever more than she ever could hurt them. Big Mom starts to get upset and sends attacks at Luffy. Luffy barely dodges a jab and says he can't go to the roof because Big Mom will follow and complicate things.
So that was a fucking lie.
Just like the JD Legend video, I find it incredibly weird when Yamato has these big delusions and anti-emotional intelligence moments just to walk up to the ultimate trauma victim Momo, like he hasn't lost both his parents and is only 8 years old. This woman is so deluded, she runs up on Momo claiming she is Kazuki Odin. I really don't like this moment, and the fact that it's played for jokes makes me disappointed. To me, this is as disrespectful as Kanjuro pretending to be Odin to trick the Scabbards. Chapter 989 is titled I Can't Imagine Losing. Big Mom, an emperor of the sea for years upon years now, gets rolled out by fodder on the Straw Hats. This could also be a plot hole because we would have to assume that Nico Robin has enough strength to carry out Big Mom, but whatever. Then after this, Hyogoro says he can't even imagine the Alliance losing. Hey Kubo, can you remind me what stakes and tension look like real quick? Oh, thanks. Meanwhile, Drake asks Hawkins, what does his 1% card mean? Hawkins says it's the chance of a certain man surviving tomorrow. Who's Who interrupts to tell them to join him in supposedly killing Queen. Luffy then uses Gear 4 for a number. This is the second time he used Gear 4 for some fodder, by the way. Meanwhile, apparently all the dialogue between Who's Who and Queen was just pump fakes because they actually wanted to kill Drake for letting Law escape in Act 2.
Somebody smell like shit!
This plot point specifically is the weirdest in all of Wano. It just narrative aids. What do I mean though? From the moment we see Who's Who, literally from the jump, he is talking about killing Queen. If you want to argue that he's putting on a show here because of Drake, that doesn't work in full context. Why? Because we see Who's Who look at Luffy, call him a rat, then focus on finding Yamato, meaning he was completely focused on completing Kaido's task. Why was he focused on completing Kaido's task? So he can get the right to challenge Queen. All of this is obviously made worse when Who's Who opens his own damn mouth. He tells Jinbei that he hates Shanks and Luffy because they're the reason why he was imprisoned. He literally calls Luffy the object of his rage. Despite this, when he sees Luffy vulnerable, running away from a poo after being blown up, he calls him a rat and insignificant. What? In full context, we're supposed to think that Who's Who was so invested in killing Drake that he made up this whole story with Queen, despite him ignoring the object of his rage to personally find Yamato, which obviously doesn't make any sense because the entire point of finding Yamato is to challenge Queen. This isn't even where it ends though. The reason why they're ganging up on Drake is because he let Law escape. Why though? What motivation does Drake have to help Law and not let him be killed by Hawkins? I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here because Kaido deliberately doesn't kill his ops, so why is Drake so smitten with Law that he doesn't want him to be jailed at best or killed at worst? Is it because he wants the Alliance to win in some way? Those are some weak motivations. You know why? Because neither Law or Drake goes to kill Hawkins. Why would you not kill the guy in a position to become a lead performer? The fact that all three of them walk away from the situation alive is the proof that One Piece has zero consequences. There's no clear reason why Drake betrayed Hawkins, nor does it make sense for Hawkins to be seemingly unaware of this, and there is no reason why Law doesn't kill Hawkins here either, as he is not morally against it and is pragmatic enough to kill him to get an advantage. Drake being slimed out during the Fire Festival seems entirely illogical too. Why wouldn't you do it earlier? I believe they had time as well because the way Queen speaks makes it sound like they already knew about this betrayal. This is just overly convoluted for no reason, especially since Drake is the literal embodiment of useless in Wano. Drake is a part of Sword, and outside of adding extra fluff to Wano, why the fuck was it here? When Drake makes that call to Kobe, we're all expecting Sword to do something. There is a missed opportunity at the end of Onigashima, but nonetheless, the entire point narratively for Drake saving Law is for him to be eventually exposed and showcase his real loyalty to Sword. That automatically implies Sword will be relevant in some way, but no, not only is Sword non-existent in Wano, Drake is literally AFK during this entire conflict. Like I said, this is just narrative aids. Moving on, Big Mom talks with Perospero. Interestingly enough, he conveniently did not get pushed off when Marco tipped over the boat. Is it to meet a quota by any means possible? Definitely not. The Scabbards fight Kaido. That's pretty much it. Oda tries to convince you this chapter has a lot of weight and depth, but no, these characters are vapid pieces of nothing, and Ashura Doji was literally stealing and killing from randoms in Wano. Additionally, Kawamatsu should be dead, but alas, One Piece has no consequences. We get a text bubble from the narrator saying that the people of Wano are able to survive because of their belief in the Kazuki. Excuse me? What happened to Act 1 when we're told the Fire Festival is held for Kaido because the people of Wano think he's a deity protecting them? What happened to Act 1 when we're shown children are being lied to that Orochi is the good guy of the story? These are completely contradictory ideas, and this is just the start of the world building sewage. In Dressrosa, the people of the island had to realize Riku was the one protecting them, and that they needed saving in the first place from Dofi. This is evidently absent from this arc, as we'll get into later. The dreaded Ice Oni starts in chapter 993. In the same chapter, Yamato says she was there during the Hour of Legends and even saw Momo get dangled over the building. That means 5-year-old Yamato is moving faster than the scabbards. LOL. If these things were really true, we would have seen something alluding to that. The fact that we don't see this tells me that Yamato was created during the climax and then was changed from a man to a woman. Anyway, Big Mom dips on Marco while Carrot and Dogshit go to... Chopper gets tagged by the Ice Oni. We now gotta get into one of the fakest scenes ever. This scene doesn't work, at least for me. First off, this scene is blatantly ripping off Usopp's best scene to date. It is literally just a 1-to-1. Then we're supposed to act like Ulti wasn't gonna headbutt her if Nami ended up lying. If that's the case, that's just weak writing. If Ulti was not gonna headbutt her simply because she lied, then we have to assume that pirates will run up on your turf and you're just gonna let them go because they say please. No, that doesn't work here. Nami saying this in general doesn't mean much. Just last arc, she was willing to die with Luffy and the Cracker Barrel army came in. That moment means much more to me than any of this. The dialogue is also super forced. They're not having any conversation or anything. Ulti just goes, hey, I'm mad. You know why? Because your captain said he'll be the king of the pirates. It's stupid dialogue that doesn't get a pass because a stupid character is saying it. Like I mentioned, this scene is just a mirror to Usopp's. However, Usopp internally thinks that it'll be fine to lie. Nigga, what? Usopp's own scene is being shown to him, yet he thinks it's okay just to do the wrong thing then. Are you serious? Is this not blatant, and I mean objective character aggression? The worst part of the scene is how Otama comes in literally out of thin air with the dog to save Nami. This is beyond an ass pull because Otama shouldn't be here, and Ulti not hearing or seeing a giant dog running in a straight line at her is a fucking stretch. This scene does too much bad and is too much weird shit to actually make it work. After this scene, because Ulti is an actual retard, she doesn't chase after the dog but asks her brother to do so, which Oda just lampshades twice. By Oda lampshading the absurdity of Nami escaping, it tells me, the competent viewer, that he forced this moment to happen by his dick and balls and had no way of making it happen 1% more naturally. Sanji gets trapped by Black Maria. Next, Zoro cuts a poo and he takes the antibodies. Chopper creatively says the counter to ice is fire. Who would have thought? Then Kaido lifts up Onigashima, a setup that will not be paid off. Oda then sets up the battles for the Tobiropo. I used to think chapter 999 and 1000 were probably the best chapters in all of Wano, but that was when I was blind. This chapter cements the character assassination of Whitebeard. Unironically, Whitebeard not sliding for Vaughn does tragic damage to his character. From the literal moment we're introduced to Whitebeard, we learn that you cannot mess with any of his crew because voila, he'll go apeshit. This point is further developed with Garp's talk with Ace and Impel Down. Whitebeard even ignores the reasonable sentiments from Ace about how he got himself into this. Whitebeard knew Kaido and thought of Oda and his family. After hearing of his death years later, why would you not go and check on Wano to make sure the rest of Oden's family weren't erased off the map? Marco, which is just Oda, brings up how it would endanger many lives. Again, the Whitebeard that was characterized in the pre-timeskip would care less about random lives compared to his own family. What we're left to gather is that Whitebeard never moved on Wano because he heard the information late, people would get hurt in bad timing. That's just not a real justification for anything though. Simply because there was more than just Oden that could have gotten hurt, and not checking on them is a huge betrayal of the prior characterization. Ace went to Wano before joining Whitebeard's crew, I believe. Therefore, he would have and could have told Whitebeard about the fucked up state of Wano. After hearing that children are going sick because they have to drink poisoned water, Whitebeard 100% would have slid no matter what. no matter what a person could say for why Whitebeard did not go, there are 3 times as many reasons for why Whitebeard should have gone. Moving on, we get the best episode of One Piece out of these 2 chapters. This is easily my favorite episode, and I know it's a lot of other people's as well. Some things I generally don't like is how Yamato was written into the story last minute, yet she knows literally everything about Oden and Luffy's dream. This is definitely a real character and not as a random self-insert. Yamato not mentioning Roger here is also a contrivance to keep the conversation positive because Ace would have crashed out about that. Beside that, try to remember this because I think the idea of Luffy having a secret goal nobody knows about until the end of the series is pretty stupid. The punch Luffy hits on Kaido is very cool and I like it. Unfortunately, this is the start of endless flashbacks. From this point on, any moment that Oda thinks is really cool or deep will have 3 to 5 flashbacks associated with it. Combat ensues, and while I know One Piece is a goofy manga, how much of that can we expend toward our climactic scenes? Comedy cuts tension, and that is the most basic rule of storytelling. So having a dramatic scene that immediately going into a joke is tonal whiplash, the likes of which we haven't seen since Code Geass.
Begin. Oh, and before you start, make sure you're at least 2 meters away from your target.
Funny enough, Oda can write comedy without cutting the tension. Kaido says the worst generation actually has some skill and aren't just using guts to win. When Luffy gets blasted by Big Mom's lightning, they ask how did he tank it, and Luffy says because he's rubber. Luffy then eats a blast breath and Kaido asks, how'd you do it this time? And Luffy just says, guts. That's funny while keeping the drama intact. Luffy runs out of haki, then Zoro starts doing damage to Kaido. Again, Kaido being scared of Enma does not make any sense at all. Enma is an accursed blade. There is no recorded history of Enma being overpowered. The legacy of Oden and even his flashback never spoke of Enma. I can't just believe that Enma is the only sword to have this effect when it's clear that Black Blade should take this position. Enough sword stuff, go watch my Mihawk video. CP0 was apparently on Onigashima for whatever reason. They emphasized the threat of the Tobiropo, saying that they could take down 100 soldiers each at a time. CP0 think Kaido is going to win, but they still want all forces to be dwindled. I wonder why. We then see Kaido's hybrid form. We get a flashback from Tama getting right to Onigashima. She makes as many dumplings she can give to the gifters. As I alluded to earlier, the fact that the Alliance don't 1% think of this really shows you their priorities. Like I said, they only care about avenging Oden. This is why they all say they're gonna die after taking Kaido's head. They almost had a week of prep time. They could have got a fuck ton of dumplings, but no, they don't even posit this idea. This reminds me of when no one in AOT told Zeke to have children instead of Astoria so they can make more royal babies. Later, someone is seen helping the scabbards. This shit is so ass, just wait. Chapter 105 has Robin and Sanji. For now, we have to have a serious dialogue about the tone in this arc. This chapter is a great example. We jump into this chapter saying Black Maria punched down Sanji because he was lured into capture. The Yonkos are the biggest stepping stone toward their careers as pirates. It is so much fun and so enjoyable when our strongest people on the crew essentially start throwing the game when it's already 10-2. So immediately the concept of this is disrespectful to the world building and allure of the Yonko. As he is getting boxed, the Fraction from Black Maria starts swooning over his manliness. They say how he would rather die than sell his comrade. Sanji asks one thing and the women all think he's gonna say something badass, but then he just yells for Robin to save him. They make reaction faces and Oda wants you to laugh your cock off. Black Maria starts taunting Sanji, saying how he is just like her other slaves that only love her. Sanji retorts with, "No, I'm not like them. I want to love all the ladies." Black Maria calls him a cheater who needs more discipline, and Sanji lowers his haki so he doesn't risk hurting her fist. Robin and Brook come to save him. We get this panel of Brook talking to the Fraction, then this other one with Sanji slipping and falling and it being played for laughs. But naturally before that, we gotta sneak in a quick joke about Sanji throwing the game. We get 2 different boob scenes, then the chapter ends. I cannot say this any more than what I'd like to. Wano was built up since Marineford and the time skip. Why are we spending half of the chapter on literal jokes while Luffy and Zoro are concurrently fighting 2 Yonkos? As I said, comedy undercuts the tension, so why is the tension between 2 deadly forces of nature and rookie pirates being cut? As a comparison, imagine if Naruto and Sasuke's fight against Kaguya had constant jokes in it. Oh wait, it does! And that's why it's fucking terrible and a complete lowlight on Naruto. We'll talk about tone and its despicable ramifications at length later. For now, we see Jack here about the scabbards and it looks like he's gonna go handle business. I misread this scene on my first read. I thought it said he'll go handle them all himself. That's why earlier I put some focus on the fact that Ashura Doji himself was able to blitz base Jack. Apparently he didn't literally say he was gonna go kill them, but it definitely seems like it. Chapter 106 opens up with the spread of the worst antagonists ever seen to date. To substantiate this, I'm gonna go over their fights back to back at the end of the conflict. When chapter 106 came out, me and all the other Wano haters were losing our minds. This chapter reveals that Kara and Dog Girl lost a 2v1. Not just a 2v1, a 2v1 in their Sulong form. First off, How? How did Perospero win a 2v1? Nothing suggested he was that strong, but let's assume it was extreme diff or something just to make sense of it. The narrative impact of Pedro's death is completely lost and forgotten the second, and I mean the second, the fight was off-screened. Third, Carrot actually losing the fight is one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen. The entire point of her character was to avenge Pedro and learn that the Straw Hats will bring the dawn. They aren't separate either. She learns the Straw Hats will bring the dawn by following Pedro's words and working to avenge him. This isn't bad because I say so. Even though I have my problems with the fight, Luffy winning against Katakuri shows his own flawed mentality. Luffy's imperfection shatters Katakuri's own mask of perfection. Winning the fight has a lot more depth than just punching. Carrot losing the fight shows how she didn't learn anything from Pedro. If Ichigo would have lost to Byakuya, not only would he die, it would prove that his ideals were wrong the entire time. This is basic writing, but Oda doesn't want to do that anymore. As Marco 2v1's King and Queen in a pretty good performance, Hyuga looks like he's gonna bite the bullet. However, this is just a pump fake airball since Chopper saves his life last second. Remember how I mentioned Chopper would be able to stop any virus like the plague from shit in his bag? We already knew Chopper would do it because we already have a frame of reference of this. If we all knew he would do it, then tell me why the fuck is it in this arc? No one important has a limiter on them because of the virus. The virus starts in chapter 993 and ends in chapter 107. During that entire duration, what was the point of having the virus? Giving Chopper something to do? That's useless if it's not thematically involved with the conflict. In a similar vein, the virus could have been used to kill Hyogoro, but Oda can't even follow through with that. Naturally, we get more random statements of random people being defeated, proving that the samurai of Wano were actually that strong. We don't even see this 1%, so again, what the hell is Oda writing here? If the Ice Oni was going to be solved in breakneck speeds, did not really kill or injure anyone important, and didn't really boo an ideological or thematically involved conflict, how the hell was it written in this arc? It's a classic example from Oda for going for width over depth. The clearest example of how to make this better is for Chopper to be enraged by Queen. He is so upset that Queen uses science and medicine for evil that he bum rushes him only to get folded and needs to be saved by someone such as Sanji. It would remove this retarded ass panel for one, plus it would give Sanji extra motivation to fold Queen, which is necessary because the through line in the original fight is weak at best. No, I'm not a better writer than Oda, I just don't know what the fuck he wrote because it's garbage. What we have here is that the Ice Oni was fodder control. It's fodder control that's intrinsically bad because Chopper was already shown to hard counter bullshit like this. This chapter ends with Lord Odin. The Scabbard's genuinely thinking for a bit that Odin is real is deadass embarrassing. Ashura Doji seriously gets tagged by Kanjuro, who's fake Odin. Fake Odin lights up some firecrackers, Ashura Doji genuinely dies from this. The thing is, it is impossible to expect nor conclude that someone can die from something like this. Also, Kanjuro is again a retard. Why didn't he light the dynamite then walk into the room and kill them all while they're shocked by the reveal? Even more, how the fuck did Kanjuro make it all the way from the outside when his blow was already like fatal? Like what? But guess what? This chapter is a 1-2 punch of retardation. Jack pulls up on the Scabbards, and as I said before, his dialogue implies he wanted to kill them all. Otherwise, what's the point in rushing over there by yourself? Literally by yourself, bum rushing in a straight line. What's the point of that if you don't want to kill them by yourself? Besides that, the Scabbards allowing Dog to 1v1 Jack is honestly re-fucking ridiculous. The Scabbards individually are all comparable to Jack, evidenced by chapter 921 and 926. Why the fuck don't they all jump Jack and continue to do whatever the fuck they're gonna do? The Scabbards deliberately make it a fair fight. Why? Jack is a dumbass nigga for running up on 7 different people who can all beat him individually. However, those 7 people are fucking idiots for allowing the 1v1 to take place in the first place. The end of this chapter is where we reach the peak of Roof Piece. No, it's not Gear 5 or anything. This panel of the fight, that's it. That's the only panel on the roof that communicates any stakes or any drama. Orochi runs into the Scabbards and they tear this nigga apart. They all blitz and cut off his head. You see how they're all on timing for this? Why the hell didn't they do that against Jack? Seems entirely silly to show that they're capable of this immediately in the next chapter. Even sillier, they let Raizo 1v1 Earlobe? Why? Just blitz the dude and keep it moving. What the fuck? Next, Law says it's impossible to move the Yonko because the Haki's so strong. Immediately after, he moves Zeus. To me, it would seem that Law can't move Zeus either because they're all a part of Big Mom's soul. But whatever, I guess. Luffy gets knocked out again and Big Mom gets tossed overboard. Law says to let her homies save Big Mom because the plan is a failure if anyone dies. First off, no it's not. Sacrificing one of your guys to make sure Yonko dies is a great play. Even more, why the hell can't Law just TP Prometheus into the water or something? Killer says there's no need to take it too far. Excuse me. You're fighting 2 Yonkos and you're not using every advantage you can. Again, how is there supposed to be quote-unquote tension and quote-unquote stakes when these guys are taking it easy on people who have ruled the sea for years upon years? Luffy wakes up and gets a power-up. This chapter was great when it first came out, but now I just think about how arrogant the Alliance are. Luffy gets a couple good hits, then he thinks he's 1v1 Kaido now. And instead of 2v1ing Hawkins and saying GG, Kid leaves him to kill her. Big Mom goes into mother mode, then one-shots page 1. We'll get into it later, but for now, Nami's motivated to be ulti and Kid comes to slam Big Mom. Since I'm partially skipping over the Big Mom fight, not really, Kid fighting Big Mom is top 5 worst things in Wano. First off, conceptually. Conceptually, this is terrible because there's nothing at all connecting Big Mom and Kid. These characters exist on 2 different sides of the world, and outside of a base level desire to get the One Piece, these characters should never interact like this. Thematically, there's also nothing going on with Kid and Big Mom. With Luffy, he completely opposes Big Mom though subjugating her family to being her crew. Luffy converts his friends into family by joining his crew. Big Mom's perfect utopia is corrupt, while Luffy's utopia completely incorporates freedom. There is not one thing similar to those that is found within Kid and Big Mom. Functionally, Big Mom and Kid is fucking garbage. Big Mom is so much stronger than Kid that there is nothing anyone could write to make it believable that a baby cat was able to beat a polar bear. This fight is nothing but terrible. The reveal of their awakening isn't good because it isn't foreshadowed, and very hard to believe that Law had one. Writing power-ups with little drama and a oh shit they had it the entire time but didn't want to use it caveat isn't how you properly write a power-up. Just look at the JoJo series for examples of good power-ups and bad power-ups. Furthermore, the way Kid actually beats Big Mom is because of Law, and even that's stupid. You could have shown Kid training the awakening and coming to understand the nature of Devil Fruit. To me, the clearest arc of development he could have gone over is where he learns to trust alliances again by understanding himself better. Once he does that, then he gets the Devil Fruit awakening. This can even fund the relationship between Luffy and Kid, who both want to be Pirate King. Luffy could put the faith back into Kid and motivate him to be a stronger pirate. It could even show him the difference between kings and the King of Kings, like this arc's attempts to. To me, this seems like the best option for Kid. As it stands right now, Kid is one of the most mishandled, poorly written pieces of nonsense I've ever seen in my life. Yes, worse than Eren Yeager. Kid says he doesn't trust anyone, he hates all alliances. A week later, he is literally in an alliance. What the fuck are you talking about? Kid makes his primary motivation to kill Kaido, not only for his goals, but because he messed with his partner. He hits Kaido some yellow belt karate and a Fugazi kaiju, then he literally ignores him for the rest of the conflict. This is why I say Oda doesn't know how to write. He sets things up just to completely ignore it and any payoff associated. This isn't bad writing just because I say so. Why would he make a character obsess over beating Kaido and argue about it constantly just for him to not care about it in the end, even though you literally gave him an extra, more personal motivation before the conflict started? Law fighting Big Mom is literally just a pragmatic procedure so he doesn't die later. Again, without this base level motivation to become Pirate King, it is the exact same for Kid. If Kid was this kingly dominant spirit, he would never be satisfied with just removing Big Mom from the battlefield. The exact same reason why Luffy wanted to beat Katakuri at his best and didn't just leave Whole Cake Island when he had the chance. We know Kid is satisfied with his Big Mom battle because he wanted to be a Yonko over Luffy and thought he deserved it. This is some of the most embarrassing quote-unquote character writing I've ever seen, further exacerbated when the entire reason Kid made an alliance was to take down Shanks, but he runs up on Shanks with home court advantage. He is completely confident he can win this shit. This character is a shitball. Moving on, we get one of the most embarrassing scenes ever. What's left of the Scabbards come to the attic or whatever, and they literally leave the stairs open to which Odin comes out of. They already know it's Kanjuro, and I honestly don't know how Kanjuro isn't fucking dead. Remember when I said how Kinemon would want to follow Odin because of Samurai Code or whatever? For that same reason, I cannot believe Kiku, who is a trained trans killer, would just be completely doggy in front of fake Odin. Funny thing is, Kiku, after taking packages of damage, took this straight blow to the chest and she didn't die. A samurai's worth is in their death, huh? I wonder what the fuck that means if none of the samurai actually die. Oh my fucking god, this arc is terrible. Afterward, injured Kinemon, who was already close to death, already taking 2 immediate blows from Kaido, who has the intent to kill, is still alive at the end of the arc. The mini justification for this is Law failing to put him back together after Punk Hazard. More specifically, this is the ultimate assassination of any storyline ever. The very first chapter of this arc immediately communicates the idea of your true worth being in your death. This is further developed with Yasui dying to give Wano and his daughter another chance. Roger has ushered in the wave of piracy, and most notably Odin. Kinemon, whose entire bravado was protecting Momonosuke and being the vehicle for him to shoulder Wano, dies while doing exactly that until his dying breath. A perfect conclusion to his character would not only be foreshadowed, but also lift the quality and drama of this arc heights One Piece hasn't seen before. Instead, Oda just erases it. Like, why? Why did he choose this option? Oda had the option to shoot himself in the stomach or win $1 million. but Oda deadass chose to shoot himself in the stomach. Like, why? But that's not where it ends though. By writing this intimate death scene, then showing Kinemon still alive while the conflict is literally taking place concurrently, Oda deadass shoots himself in the neck. It tells us that no character in the Alliance can truly die. I can't imagine losing. I can't imagine losing again. Hyogoro not dying. Zoro drinking the big pot before the minis. These characters are allowed to do whatever they want and not experience consequences, because if they were, Oda would be forced to write. Just like with the sword shit. Why even write Kaido coming down with the club if it wasn't gonna do anything down the line? Next, Chopper genuinely believes Luffy is dead. Not only that, he then thinks there's no hope at all and then it's all over because Luffy is apparently dead. I don't know how Oda did it so seamlessly, but this is the assassination of Chopper. I put it on my soul. There's a page in Alabasta where Sanji and Chopper hears that Luffy lost, and Sanji tells Chopper he shouldn't believe the enemies and that their captain is able to work magic. The assassination comes in with this being a literal one-to-one to that. Oda this arc is really weird about redoing good moments from Alabasta. Chopper has already been taught this lesson. You know why I know? Because earlier in this arc, he believed Luffy would be fine in prison. Like, what? Let's assume Luffy for real died here. That means Chopper would genuinely stop fighting and give up. We have been following this guy for 1,000 chapters just for him to rage quit when the game gets a little hard. What the fuck are you talking about? Sanji then has to reiterate the exact same message he already told him, and by doing so, it removes every single article we knew about Chopper having faith in Luffy and the crew. So thank you, Oda. Thank you for not knowing how to write your characters.
Alright, bro, what happened to the fucking baby?
With the amazing Spider-Man!
Who is that guy? Wait, you want some more? Oh, you know he don't want it.
Good flash.
You know he don't want
flash.
Yamato tries to stall out Kaido. Kaido says he won't go anywhere because Wano is special. Like I said with Toki, too many world-building details connect Wano as an important magical place, but there is nothing logical that makes sense of these statements. Otama uses her power to change the sides of the war. Zoro gets a magical potion from Zo that revives him, but he takes double damage later. Might as well get into it now, but this is the biggest ass pull in the damn series. This is worse than the random water from Yuba saving Luffy after losing the crocodile. It literally spells out that there will be no consequences for anybody anytime soon. Zoro wakes up at the same time as Luffy, which is just a normal fucking week. Oda could have at least done some Rock Lee shit to make this ass pull more digestible. Oda just had Zoro do some cool shit, get revived, take no consequences, then win. What the fuck are you talking about? Jinbei fights Who's Who. He laments how Luffy and Shanks are the target of his rage because they stole the Gum Gum fruit, to which Who's Who was in prison as a result. Who's Who then uses Oda's words to foreshadow Gear 5. This dialogue is entirely so unnatural and weird. Anyway, Jinbei wins. Can you guys tell me what's wrong with the situation? Who's Who actively gets mad as hell at Jinbei for simply being a member of the Straw Hat crew. Remember when he saw Luffy and was asked if he wanted to give chase, but he just said no, he's a rat? This was because he wanted to pretend to look for Yamato so he could fake challenge Queen so he could gang up on ex Drake. He didn't even pursue Drake after he got away. The retcon here is very, very, very obvious. Who's Who was never a CP9 agent, was never guarding the gum fruit, and was never lying to anyone to capture ex Drake. Oda just retconned all these things into the character to tell the story he wants, but it doesn't make any sense. Holy shit, Oda and Isayama must be brothers. Frankie fights Sasaki, Luffy gets saved, and Robin fights Black Maria. Momo turns into an adult and climbs back to Onigashima. Even though Wano's a mess, Momonosuke seems to be the most impressive character so far. A child trying to cope with the burden of his birth and a situation literally taking away his childhood metaphorically and literally. Really cool stuff. I hope the culmination of his character matches the drama and integrity already built. Chapter 1022 opens up with an announcement that Toby Roppo were down and out. I read Wano mostly weekly, and the second this chapter came out, everyone agreed that this was bait. Oda was lying here, or something else was coming back. Basically, the Hoculus Straw Hats being able to beat some of the strongest members of the Bees Pirates is a huge stretch, especially since guess what our standard was? It was Ulti in page 1. She was able to tank like 50 attacks, and page 1 got hit bad, and all he said was, yeah, my jaw's a bit looser now. Showing us this, then immediately showing Sasaki and Black Maria get manhandled by newbies is a crazy suspension of disbelief. Raizo and Fukudikaru talk, but it's completely empty. Much better handled in a series like Naruto, I can't lie. Hawkins apparently has a straw doll of Kid. I think this is personally impossible. Kid would never let that dude touch him, so essentially we have another Death Note ability where all you can do is imagine it for it to happen. As soon as this chapter came out, multiple people just assumed that Killer would cut off the left arm and move on. King and Queen have this fire panel, but then Oda can't help himself, so he tries his hardest to make Zoro and Sanji look cool. But by doing so, it tells the audience they aren't really pressed in any major way. It's pretty common sense that if you have time to be cold, then you don't have time to be stressed. This isn't Usogi. Queen asks if Sanji's leg is on fire because of Judge. Sanji says he's all human. Zoro fights King, and Hyogoro and Kawamatsu talk about how he looks like Ryuma and his descendant. So the blade that is the most thematically and narratively important to Zoro was crafted by a Wano native. After this, Zoro gets compared to Ryuma and his descendants. Again, the fact that the fox thought Zoro was some random ass nigga is crazy. Oda then shows us how fluffy this arc really is. Back to back, we see Dog fighting Jack, Cat fighting Perospero, and Raizo fighting Earlobe. Every competent reader asks themselves while reading, why the fuck are these fights even taking place? As I already went over, these three fights should have never taken place in the first place, logically and narratively. We'll get into it later as I said, but Momo turns into a dragon. Oh yeah. Luffy tells everyone that he will beat Kaido, and Kid makes a cameo saying you better win. LOL. This act again features some of Oda's worst writing. I think we get some good stuff generally within this act, but when you actually critically engage with the content, then you only get more and more dick. This act literally opens up with Big Mom being rolled out like a dodgeball by some randoms on the crew. As a longtime fan, I can appreciate several moments, but the writing simply isn't good. Who's Who is the best example for Oda simply not wanting to write a coherent story. We are more than an hour deep into the video, and I think you know the drill. You know why these things are bad.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
As we get into Act 5, we have to realize we are approaching a climax to a 10-year-long storyline in the making. Oda has been apparently waiting to draw this for years upon years upon years, and this is what we're getting into. Remember, I'm saving all fights for later and I will not cover them as they appear. Yamato says she must deal with the bombs inside of Onigashima that will explode if Onigashima touches down. Zoro and King start touching each other. Next, CP0 get a call and it says that if Kaido loses, the world government will take over Wano. We get a statement that Onigashima is 5 minutes away from approaching the flower capital. Momo's confidence issues are veering his head when he cannot summon flame clouds large enough to hold up Onigashima and literally save his country. Queen and Sanji get into it and Sanji starts getting his exoskeleton rebooted. Hawkins fights Killer some more, and like I said in Act 4, this was the most predictable conclusion. Like I said though, we will get into all of this later. Orochi then talks to Kanjuro and asks him to destroy everything, to which he makes Kazunbo. Sanji hits Queen with the mean one while the Pooh takes another hit from the CP0 agent. Rob Lucci explicitly told these guys to go after Robin, but they're over here fighting DJs and dinosaurs. While Zoro is struggling with King, Orochi is hiding in the same room. He hears a shamisen and then sees Komurasaki standing in front of him. Sanji defeats Queen, then immediately after Zoro beats King. I don't know why it's structured this way, but sure. Zoro then calls himself the King of Hell. Luffy and Kaido start getting into it, and it's pretty funny, albeit at a cost. The girls they start talking about changing the name of the Gum Gum fruit. Meanwhile, Zunisha pulls up to Wano. He doesn't really do anything though. They're just a Joy Boy cheerleader, then they go back to the bench. Oda uses Chopper to stress the damage Zoro will feel in the future while Zoro sees the Grim Reaper. To this day, I think Oda just wanted to draw whatever he wanted. This has not been explained yet, and it could be a drop plot point. Izo, a commander of Whitebeard and trained samurai, apparently took injuries from the Beast Pirates off screen. This is definitely believable, by the way. Izo goes to step up to 2 Cypher Pole agents. Kid then says he'd rather die than let Big Mom go to the roof. Holy shit. Big Mom gets drop kicked by Kid and Law while the bombs from the bottom blow a hole through Onigashima for Big Mom to fall through. Momo says he will not open the borders to Wano. Raizo wins his fight and Komurasaki reveals her identity to Orochi. CP0 get an order to eliminate Luffy no matter what. Luffy gets blasted through Onigashima and it makes me wonder, could he have not flown up from the beginning? Whatever. Luffy is running out of stamina, then he gets hit bad by Kaido. Luffy straight up dies. Being knocked out again, Luffy gets another power up. While this happens, we also get Orochi and Hiyori stuff. Amazing. Raizo gives Jinbei enough water from Zou to put out Kazunbo. Luffy then gets a big punch to beat Kaido. I know you guys want me to talk about this, just give it a second. We get a million flashbacks of things we already know happen, then Dendro comes to kill Orochi in a very soap drama scene that's a parallel to Act 2. The thing is, just like a parallel to Act 2, Dendro doesn't even make any sense. Dendro was essentially walking around doing nothing this entire time, waiting around the corner like Jogo to get this moment off. This isn't cool, nor is it nice. We get Kaido's backstory. What can I say that already hasn't been said? While Luffy beats Kaido, the culmination of Momo's entire arc is featured in the smallest, most anticlimactic panel I've ever seen. All Oda had to do was draw it better and would have been great, but unfortunately he messed up on this simple shit. In never before seen fashion, the heroes of the story have to come down to the civilians of Wano and tell them that the battle is already fought and won. I have deadass never seen this before in the history of time ever. Every One Piece arc has civilians understand they need saving and put all their trust into Luffy to liberate them. Having the battle fought and then won, telling people after the fact as if it's a book report, is just writing the story backwards. Momo gives his little speech and then we get one of the most infuriating panels ever. Chapter 1052 is one of the worst chapters of anything I've ever seen. We open up with the Gorosei realizing that Nika is upon the world again. In 1044, it seemed like the Gorosei knew Luffy had the fruit. Why did they wait so long to actually kill Luffy then? If you want to say they weren't exactly too pressed about it, that's a lie. Nika is the one thing they want to prevent no matter what. As soon as you hear that anyone has a stretchy devil fruit, you have to hunt their ass down now. Especially since Luffy isn't a random. He's a part of the worst generation and they even sent Kuma in case Moria was defeated. But whatever. Maybe they just failed at every chance they got to kill Luffy like they did now. We get confirmation that Zunisha virtually left instantly. I wonder what the fuck the point was in him showing up in the first place. Gandhi says Wano will not be opened up, and we don't really know what this means despite it being the entire point of the conflict. We just know that Gorosei assumed the country would be open again if Kaido was defeated. So what we have here is that the world government sent ships to take over Wano in case Kaido loses, then they immediately make Kaido win. Then when Luffy somehow wins, their basis of taking over Wano was just an arbitrary assumption. So they literally did not get a win on any front they planned for. These antagonists genuinely have a needle in their head. The signal between CP0 and the Gorosei gets jammed as we hear a "wait where you are, I'll be right there." Hawkins and Drake are on 1 HP begging their cloak and dagger for heals, and Hawkins makes a dramatic revelation. Apparently, the 1% man he mentioned in the beginning of the conflict was himself the entire time. Hawkins says that he came in search for a particular man. I hope he's not talking about himself. There are multiple reasons why this is bad. First off, it is probably the corniest, lamest thing I've ever seen. No joke. This isn't a reveal or a plot twist, it's just a loud whoopee cushion on what could have been interesting. Why couldn't it have been Luffy and incorporated into the whole Nika thing? By making it Hawkins, it makes all his actions all the more weird. Hawkins knows he has 1% chance of surviving, and despite this, he toys around with Killer long enough to where he finds out a way to win. Just kill Killer, then kill Kid immediately after. Hawkins also says in his own head he didn't plan for anything like this to happen. Nick, if you had a 1% chance of living, what the hell do you mean you didn't plan for this to happen? Outside of it being generally interesting to draw and look at, what the fuck was the point in having Hawkins in this arc? This is the end result of him being killed by Killer, not really, then dying in a twist that is the most benign and uneventful thing ever. Holy shit, this is one of the biggest airballs I've ever seen. I would have personally loved to see Law beat him with his awakening, then go to the Big Mom fight already nerfed and everything. Whatever though. 7 days later, we see a classroom. As I mentioned in Act 1, the entire point of showing the kids being radicalized and lied to was to eventually dispel those narratives later, right?
Ain't nobody be this wrong. CNN was wrong.
They understand that Kazuki were heroes and that Orochi was the bad guy, but they still think a closed country is better than an open one. Those two things were juxtaposed together to stress how both of them are bad. Guys, this is literal kindergarten level shit. Oda just doesn't know how to write. We find out that Izo and Ashuradoji died. The way people die in One Piece, you would never think these guys are actually dead. For God's sakes, Pound and Bon Clay are both still alive. The fact that these randoms die off screen tells me Oda just wanted to meet a certain deadline. The first idea brought up in this arc is about a samurai's true worth being in his end. Death as an idea is the most important idea in this arc, but when we actually get two of our heroes dead, it makes you feel literally nothing other than a "ah shit they died" moment. Death, writing wise, is used to squeeze out every sense of drama and finality possible out of a character and project it onto the reader. Their deaths are not at all dramatic nor tense. Luffy and Zoro wake up from their week-long comas. I'm so glad Zoro was unable to move, then doubling the pain, he just wakes up pretty much fine after a week. Thanks for that. We get more age regressing shit I mentioned with Hiyori. It's just really corny. And then Apu pulls up on Kid and gives him a newspaper from outside of Wano. How the fuck was he able to get a newspaper in the first place? Like, anyway, despite that nonsense, Kid should actively attempt to kill Apu right now. I don't get how he gets so mad at Apu that he crashes out on him during the party, but then he's just cool with him handing him a newspaper and is cool like chilling around him. Whatever. Green Bull comes to Wano and he's on the phone with Akainu, to which he is told not to make anything worse. Green Bull is arguably one of the worst additions in Wano, and that's saying a lot. We'll break it down right now, and then after we'll get into some juicy bits. Green Bull was told by Akainu not to do anything crazy, to specifically not make anything worse. What the hell does that mean though? One interpretation is that Akainu wanted Green Bull to gather information only. Wano is a closed nation and they need intelligence. Interpretation 2 is that Akainu wanted Green Bull to kill Luffy and nothing more. He wanted to fulfill the mission Legurose gave earlier or something like that. Interpretation 3 is that Akainu was supposed to kill Luffy, Law, and Kid and dismantle any threats to the world government so they can take over. If you have any more interpretations, you can leave them down in the comments, but I don't think that'll change anything. If Green Bull's goals were to gather intelligence, that means ordering a battleship and trying to kill Luffy are just his own rogue motivations. So this whole don't make the situation worse thing is immediately over. If Green Bull's goals were to kill Luffy, sending over a battleship after dismantling the Beast Pirates' remnants is making the situation worse objectively. To me, the only option, and yes, the only option, is that he intended to subjugate Wano and kill Luffy in the process. This would make the most sense concerning the world government's general motivations and why they send an admiral and nobody else. Because Green Bull was supposed to force Wano to their knees, I would suppose making it worse will be involving civilians or angering the military, basically making a PR nightmare to where there is no plausible deniability for taking over Wano. If these are Green Bull's goals and motivations, stomping on the Beast Pirate remnants does not help. Additionally, why didn't he do any espionage? He just W keys at everyone and gets away with it because he's strong. To me, his actions make accomplishing his goals much harder. He also makes things much worse because he does make enemies out of the Beast Pirates and the strongest people in Wano. But all of this is compounded by one question: why the fuck did Green Bull come to Wano? The simple answer is Film Red. Film Red was coming out, so Oda had a strong person introduced so Shanks could come up and hit him with some Wi-Fi hockey. How do I know this? Because Uta, a character never mentioned before in the history of the manga, makes a cameo. Oda wanted Shanks in the manga doing something cool so the audience would be motivated to watch him do more cool things in the movie. That is also why Green Bull intercepts a call saying he'll be right there, but then literally arrives a week fucking later. Like, what? Shanks conveniently sails around Wano, then immediately takes off after doing literally nothing. Basically, everything about this plot point is the writer making the most transparent attempt at stuffing his pockets and ruining the quality of the story. Moving on, Cocksucker tells us that Pluton is in Wano. Robin also says she knew this from the poneglyph in Alabasta. This is one of the weirdest retcons ever. I've been waiting to cook this shit for 3 years, so we're diving deep as hell into this nonsense.
There's a hog behind us.
Got him. It is important to realize that Crocodile's entire goal was for Pluton. Crocodile got the information that it was linked to Alabasta, and he started his decade-long campaign to take over the country to find the weapon inside. Crocodile recruited Robin in order to find the weapon. When Robin read the fake information of Crocodile, she did this to partially protect the kingdom. This is the same reason why she didn't kill Tashigi and saved Luffy. She intrinsically doesn't want people to die or anything adjacent to Ohara. Also, understand that Cobra decided to kill himself in order to take out Robin and Crocodile because he did not want Crocodile to take over the country or find Pluton. However, these things are one and the same and are said interchangeably. If Crocodile gets Pluton, then he will destroy the country. And if he destroys the country, then he will find Pluton. There are no semantics to be had here. So we have firmly established the key players here. Crocodile's entire motivations were about Pluton entirely. He worked with Robin to get it, and despite Robin not intending to tell him where Pluton was, it was secretly linked to her desire to not let randoms die. Finally, Cobra was so willing to protect the country from Crocodile and make sure Pluton was not found that he was going to kill himself. Let's go to chapter 218. Cobra asks Robin why she lied about the poneglyph. Cobra then says the following: "The stone had all the information about the weapon you were after, including its location. If you had told him what was written there, it would have been over. Alabasta would have fallen into his hands." This dialogue directly implicates Pluton as being within Crocodile's grasp and thereby the destruction of Alabasta as well. This is why when it's revealed in chapter 1053 that Pluton is in Wano, it actively makes no sense and retcons a huge part of Alabasta. Cobra says that if Robin told Crocodile its location, the country would have fallen into his hands. This means that Pluton was buried in Alabasta. Think about it. If Pluton was really in Wano the entire time, this means that Robin lied for literally no reason. She says she had no intention of giving him the weapon. Robin would not be giving him shit since it's occupied by a Yonko. As far as Crocodile knows, Kaido has Pluton and that's the end of the story. There was no reason to lie here, doubly so because our motivations were actually not wanting people to die. Then let's move on to Cobra. Cobra looks like a fucking retard. Excuse my language, but assuming he knew it was in Wano because that's what he implies with the full context of the story, his dialogue here makes no sense. He says the kingdom would fall into his hands with the knowledge of the stone, but that's completely incongruent with the information saying that's in Wano. Cobra was literally gonna kill himself to ensure that the weapon was not found. Why would he kill himself just to protect the weapon that was in Wano? Does that make any sense? Okay, any counter argument you want to make has to run through a couple screenings. Why did Robin lie? Why did Cobra say this? And why did Cobra want to kill himself? No matter how you finagle your way through those obvious logical roadblocks, this hurts Crocodile in the story of Alabasta so much. Crocodile's motivations and the stakes associated with the entire arc are entirely Pluton related. Finding out that Pluton was never in his reach muddies his motivations in the entire arc. This is because the justification for the conflict and Crocodile's goals became somehow lost in translation. The entire reason he targeted Alabasta was for Pluton, but now we have to assume that his source or whatever was just wrong and that information was never true to begin with. I genuinely do not understand this retcon. Is it cool to make previous antagonists' motivations weird, convoluted, and illogical? Because Pluton is in Wano, why the fuck did Oden want to open the borders? Oda can make sense of this later on. For example, if Oda wanted to open up the borders for Joy Boy to use Pluton destroy the Red Line or something like that, that can make sense, but not really, since it's pointless to narratively juxtapose a closed nation with Orochi being a hero. This tells me that the original direction of this arc was not about having the borders closed because Pluton was here. Additionally, I heard a rumor that said opening the borders was originally about bringing the country together, which would be rather thematically perfect because the people of Wano had more than enough proof of bigotry, sexism, discrimination, and etc. Maybe an open nation would be more accepting, and etc. I don't know. Who knows at all? All I know is that making Pluton in Wano is one of the most weirdest, most unnecessary, most convoluted plot points I've ever seen. Oda truly did not know what the fuck he was writing when he made this. Moving on, Cocksucker reveals himself to the Scabbards and Momo. The Scabbards say that they knew that the entire time. This sort of makes sense, but it's just corny to me. This is compounded by the fact that this nigga shouldn't be alive. Like I alluded to in Act 3, Sukiyaki had a dangerous illness and Oden only visited his father that one time because he was gonna die soon. Then a year or two later, when he's back from traveling, he asks if his father really died from illness. What the fuck is up with Orochi and subsequently Oda for keeping these characters alive? Sukiyaki should have been killed, Kawamatsu should have been killed, Ashura Doji should have been killed. It doesn't make sense for Sukiyaki to be alive at all. He was going to die from the illness. I don't know how an old man is able to survive 20 years in a box with presumably poisoned fish only. His illness just deadass went away after thin air. Oda just doesn't know what he's doing. Moving on, Luffy, Kid, and Law make their next move out of Wano. We get a pretty good moment between Luffy and Momo, even though Oda uses too many flashbacks to get there. Then we close the final page of Wano. You guys already knew we were gonna rip this page apart. I only wonder if we're gonna get into it now or during my final selection. This page is single-handedly the worst page in all of One Piece. This is the full culmination of Oda's lack of writing and the dog shit piling up for years. First off, the context of this poem or haiku or performance or whatever the fuck is about primarily a victim of Orochi performing and admonishing his names in attempts to destroy Wano. This is not Hiyori getting her revenge or the people of Wano learning their lesson or anything like that. This is just a cinematic demonstration that Orochi attempts were futile. If you believe Hiyori is referring to the clan's name, you are wrong. The context of the play reaffirms she is talking about Orochi. Even if it was the author's intent to make it seem like the clan name, this absolutely shits on the ideas in Ace's arc. The whole idea of Ace's character was to dismantle any prospect of people inheriting the sins of their kin. Ace accepting love from his comrades and brother is him accepting this message entirely. Advocating that Orochi's clan was born to burn is advocating for inheriting sins across kin. Interpreting that Hiyori is referring to the person Orochi also doesn't work here. Orochi was not born to burn. Ever advocating for this message completely tears apart the message of Robin's arc. Existing is never a crime and should never be. Some might say these arguments don't apply because Orochi isn't Robin nor Ace and he's like a dictator or whatever. However, as Doflamingo's character tried to say, no one is born evil. Doubly so because we know Orochi had no plans to take over Wano and he was completely manipulated. Orochi is without a doubt an evil person, but this is likely because he was hunted and chased down due to the peoples of Wano's hatred. This direction of the story is simply awful because this page doesn't solve or even address the conflict. I made a video 2 years ago talking about this page and truly what it means. Just like I said, this conflict isn't addressed. The entire reason why Odin was twerking in the streets was to mend both sides of the conflict. This further adds to why I believe opening the borders was fundamentally retconned. If all of Odin's efforts were for the prosperity of everyone in the nation, his final message of opening the borders can't be divorced from this. There is not a message to the story if both sides keep doing dick measuring contests until one side gets a literal child of prophecy on their side to win. Despite all this nonsense, I have to add some additional comments. If this is a pun because Kurozumi translates to charcoal and charcoal burns in a parallel to Odin boiling, that doesn't make anything better. Can someone tell me why Orochi chose boiling for Odin instead of seppuku or anything like that? It is because he thought it would be funny as a final fuck you. The pun doesn't work as the Kurozumi were literally burned, and it assigns the agency of the Kurozumis as worthless. This is the worst act by far. This is one of the worst endings I've ever seen, and if this was 5% better, then maybe Wano as a whole wouldn't be completely garbage. I'm not gonna go over again why this is bad. Pluton, Hiyori, Green Bull, these things should deadass be trigger words for why this shit is really that terrible. As I said though, we're gonna cover every fight in this mug just so everyone here understands what the fuck is the problem.
Yo, Pierre, you wanna come out here?
Before anyone says anything stupid, the fights and quality of them matter a lot to One Piece. One Piece is a battle shonen. It is a story where every single conflict of the series will be resolved with the fight, and the politics and world building are completely contingent on the character's strength. The fights matter so much in One Piece, our protagonists and Deuteragonist goals are completely dependent on fighting others. To break it down, there's not a single fight in this arc that is better than Zoro versus Mr. One. I will cover all the Onigashima battles in a timely manner. This will go over art, choreography, dialogue, aura, and most importantly, characterization and thematic relevance. I'll also try to go in order, but if you've been really paying attention to this video, I tend to do things a bit of out of order sometimes. So the first fight we're going to get into is the Scabbards versus Kaido. This is an automatic airball. The Scabbards don't care about saving Wano, they have zero narrative reason for dick riding Odin, and none of them have an individual character worth attaching anything to. These guys are hollow pieces of wood that fight Kaido. Kaido also just allows them to get every single piece of damage, but that turns out to be fake. The dialogue is also super corny. Run? Don't make me laugh. We're tired of running, tired of hiding. Just let us die as Lord Odin's samurai. Once we've taken your head, that is. It also astonishes me that Kaido is unable to kill a single one of them. If he actively says he admires samurai and death is what completes a person and wants to end the Kozuki, why the fuck would he not just run through them right now? Jack also gets off screen during this altercation, and Kaido tries to hype them up by saying that they're just that strong and etc. That's just corny though. Next is looking like Roof Piece, no joke. This is hype, but it's completely garbage. Off rip, who was able to damage Kaido? Luffy? Yeah, sure, I guess. Zoro? I guess when he puts his dick into it. But Law? No. Killer? No. Kid? Definitely not. Because these guys aren't doing real damage to Kaido, all their attacks are just cool spectacles for the audience but with zero weight behind them. Additionally, Kaido and Big Mom are holding back about 90% of their power, but whenever they use 1% of it, these guys literally have no recourse, no failsafe, no idea what the fuck to do. How Roof Piece ends is also incredibly stupid. Law can't teleport Big Mom but teleports Big Mom's soul inside of a box, then Kid runs off to deal with her saying no need to take it too far. Yeah, no need to take it too far against Yonkos, by the way. Luffy gets knocked out, then gets a power up, then tells everyone he has it from there. While this chapter is fire first time reading, Luffy's overconfidence is never addressed or mediated. Even when he loses 2 more times, he just says the exact same things as before. Roof Piece doesn't offer any piece of character writing. There aren't new or developed facets to these characters. It would have been really interesting if we got to know Kaido's thoughts on the loyalty between Kid and Killer, or how Law was able to take out Doflamingo. There could be ideas here, but it's pretty much just brushed aside to get to fights and fighting, quality of which was also incredibly weak. Kaido feels like a punching bag, then Law consistently looks lame as hell. He throws rocks at Kaido, whose introduction was jumping off a sky island. Are we serious? Next up is Frankie versus Sasaki. This is likely the best fight in Wano. I'm being a little facetious, but it's easily my favorite fight. Frankie as a character has already reached his peak when he was Cuddy Flam, but that's fine. I think this fight generally has a lot of good. Frankie fights usually have these elements to them. They feel sort of earned because Frankie's skill set as a carpenter or whatever the fuck is pretty unique. Frankie is also not an idiot, being able to recognize the enemy's weaknesses as well as his own. The general art here is fine, like it's not bad at all. There is a bit of well-timed comedy here as well. When Sasaki uses his move in the wrong way, he tries to play it off, which Frankie calls him out on. A lot of this fight is off-screen as well as intersped with random nonsense, but I think it's entirely solid despite that. The main caveat here is obviously the fact that Denjiro should have killed Sasaki, Big Mom should not have freed him, and Sasaki should have shown more interest in killing Denjiro after his betrayal, but whatever. We also don't know if Sasaki was using Haki while fighting against Frankie. I want to say he was. I want to say he wasn't, but that sounds entirely illogical. Robin versus Black Maria is a joke. It's nice in terms of giving Robin something to do and making her look cool, but that doesn't really work here for me. Everyone enjoys Robin content, but this just seems like content instead of anything meaningful. It's like when you watch a YouTube video for fun versus watching a YouTube video because they have genuinely something to say that's engaging and interesting. The fight itself is just okay at best. Robin gets really big, realizes she's not going anywhere like that, tries to attack Black Maria, instead gets almost lit on fire. She puts out the fire, then she cracks her back or something like that. It is a very simple fight. Again, I like that Robin did something, but this fight is just whatever. Maybe Kaido was just hitting down the side or something. The ulti fight sits in the worst space for me personally. I think too much of it is poorly handled and can easily be fixed. I did rank ulti the highest for a reason. Her tanking so many hits in general is an amazing example for what the Tobi Roppo should be, but there are too many contrivances and random nonsense that go into this quote-unquote fight. I already touched upon it briefly in the Nami scene, but that Nami scene is deadass stupid. I don't like repeats as it's objectively corny and the dialogue is obviously so forced. To say it again, Ulti didn't notice an 11-ton wild animal running at them in a straight line while literally looking in that direction. Big Mom then one-shots her teammate while she's standing around literally doing nothing. Ulti has the speed and power to one-shot Nami and Usopp at the same time, but the only reason it doesn't happen is because Oda is writing the story. Ulti gets hit by Big Mom's cannon, but that's just more nonsense. Ulti did have a good showcase narratively her role in Tobi Roppo with her zone fruit and everything, but this is a two-edged sword. Because you showcase her prowess as a fighter and durability so well, it will always be a huge suspension of disbelief to think that she can actually have lost the fight at any turn. So what we have here is that the character of Ulti living up to the standard of the Beast Pirates, but the general writing brings down the quality of the story to the nastiest degree possible. Big Mom with the assist, Otama saving Nami, Ulti being capable of blitzing and one-shotting with the writer holding her back. Too many things that hold this back entirely. The editing to this video might make it seem like this is all condensed and concentrated, but no, this fight is broken up into like 20 different chapters with a couple pages each, aka just bad pacing. I briefly covered Jinbei versus Who's Who already, but just to meet a quota I have for the video, we'll touch upon it again. This fight verifies there was a retcon concerning Who's Who original motivations. The fight itself looks entirely good, and I like seeing the 6 powers used again. The Fang fights were creative, and Jinbei getting a Haki Bloom mid-battle is also cool to see. If this fight didn't have terrible characters involved, then it would be a bang, to be honest. It is reasonable that someone of Jinbei's caliber would defeat Who's Who in a tough fight but have a lot of energy left over. I think it would have been much better to see Who's Who get back up and run away, or be a bit more pathetically defeated because he was a racist little weirdo, but I guess whatever. Some negatives about this fight, it's obviously the dialogue. It is pretty much some of the most unnatural and forced shit ever. Besides that, solid fight, but it's mostly because of Jinbei as a member of the crew, not because of Who's Who. Killer vs. Hawkins would be a very solid addition to this arc if not for 3 major things. Killer vs. Hawkins is not a matchup that anyone predicted. There is very minimal things that would connect these characters narratively and almost nothing thematically. If this matchup was foreshadowed or put into the reader's head like a, I don't know, Law versus Hawkins, then it could maybe work out. On that note, this matchup completely makes all the setup between Law and Hawkins pointless. Secondly, the way Hawkins wins is silly and immediately predicted by Morge, Tekking, and King of Lightning. So even the smartest, chillest, and dumbest One Piece fans immediately know what the fuck was gonna happen. As well, it doesn't make any sense how Kid even has a straw doll to begin with. They virtually never interact, so Hawkins must have some Death Note ability. Third, the 1% shit. Oh my god, you truly cannot understate how retarded this plot point is. The guy knows he has 1% chance of living, but his internal monologue does not look like that. His actions do not reflect the actions of a person who wants to live. And again, why continue to fight if you only have a 1% chance of winning? Why don't you Death Note as many dolls as possible so you don't have any chance of dying? Hawkins is just a completely useless idiot that shows me that Oda can't handle things that he doesn't have a heart on for. I think Yamato versus Kaido is missing a lot of things that keep it from being a good battle. This fight doesn't have much action, but that's hardly a limiter. Back in my woozy days, I said Jugram versus Uryu was a top 10 fight in Bleach. This is because some fights are a battle of ideals rather than actual combat. Gojo vs Sukuna is a great example of this. However, the themes and ideals presented in this fight aren't actually present, and if they are, they're incredibly shallow. First off, there are an incredible amount of pump fakes in this fight. Kaido says he's here because it's Wano. What the hell does that even mean? People say that it's because Wano has an ancient weapon, Pluton, but as I've already proven, that was retconned in the last minute, so that can't be it. Kaido is asked why he takes the freedom of the people of Wano, and he says answers aren't so simple. Again, what the hell does that even mean? To me, that is literal nonsense. Second, a major idea in this fight is identity, which is connected to your own autonomy or in situation you're born in. Yamato is saying she'll protect Wano for her own thoughts and desires, while Kaido says it's in her blood to rule over it. This can be knocked down to fate versus free will. This idea, however, has always been a core part of Luffy's character ever since ever. So while there is definitely content here that alludes to a larger framework, that isn't really explored to a fullest extent because the character it is profusely involved with is absent for this fight. So this fight isn't a complete miss, because it does have some interesting stuff happening, and the anime makes it look crazy. I believe though it is nonetheless an airball with things that go unexplained or not elucidated upon. There's also thematic stuff that reads completely shallow just by the nature of it taking place in the fight. Unfortunately, that just means it's a bad concept and shouldn't have happened in the first place. From the moment Sanji vs Queen came out, I knew something was off with it. I didn't really know what it was until I watched Dritz's downfall of One Piece on Whole Cake Island. I don't aim to steal his talking points, but I think it's important to watch his section on Sanji before hearing what I have to say. Which sounds a little crazy, of course, because I am asking to watch 90 minutes before you watch the next 2 minutes or so, but yeah. Basically, everything in this fight is completely shallow and nonsensical. First off, Sanji as a kid was not genetically altered. That is the entire point of his backstory. He was born kind and good because of the actions of his mother to remove the poison, whatever. This is also why his eyebrows are like that. The doctor also said he wasn't affected, so I wonder what the fuck the point is in having Zoro take the pills and Sanji actually getting beat up for his weakness if the entire time he was affected. It makes the previous plot point so much weaker, but that's not the point overall. Sanji shouldn't be experiencing this logically, but if you want to say it makes sense, that's fine. Sanji losing his mind and identity because of the suit awakening his genes or whatever makes Sanji lose the ideological battle against Germa. The point of Germa is to show us that Sanji's emotions and kindness are his strength. However, by adopting literal strength from the people you oppose, using the object of their emotionless personalities to garner it, it ends up completely destroying the narrative here. Sanji does not prove that he is strong with his emotions. He has to get a power from the people he opposes. That is completely anti-thematic writing. Finally, inside the actual fight, Queen is deadass a retard. Queen gets virtually low diff, not spawning much drama, and he is very corny as well. Sanji calls up Zoro asking to kill him if he's different in the end, but this goes literally nowhere and is just a pump fake into a corny joke in the worst chapter in the series. To me, this fight doesn't work, and if anyone wants me to further expand on my reasoning, I would love to make a real video on this fight and how it's so fundamentally flawed. This is probably just the best fight in Wano, period. Zoro vs King has always been the most interesting fight for me. This is pretty much because the combat actually works here. King has tons of cool abilities, and seeing Zoro have to understand himself and King to beat him is a great touch we haven't seen at all of the story, pretty much. Generally speaking, this fight is good. The combat is incredibly good and well drawn and gives a good sense of catharsis. King's backstory is pretty decent and his design is fire. He said it. He said it. One thing I don't appreciate / find weird is how in their backstories, King and Kaido are like best friends, but in the main story, Kaido barely knows who King is. There's almost this animosity when they're shown together. That's fine, but pretty weird. I wonder what could have been the original idea there. Regardless, this fight is solid, and the anime definitely makes it something special. Here we're gonna cover Dog, Cat, and Raizo all together. I know Oda's intention was to give Scabbards individual fights and something to do, but this doesn't work here. I already explained why, but these fights should not be happening in the first place. With maybe the exception for Cat, these guys should have gotten blitzed and dealt with. Because this arc is so obviously bloated, these fights have little to no combat and are mostly all off-screened. There is also no real or narrative reason why these guys are fighting. It's just good guys beating bad guys. Dog not being able to put down Jack makes sense, but I can't say the same for anyone else. Pero Sparrow isn't commander level. Narratively, he's probably where the Toby Roppo are. But Jack also said the Toby Roppo cannot deal with the Scabbards even while wounded. So Cat without Sulong should definitely dismantle Candy Boy. Matter of fact, sick of dedicating energy to this Brandolini's Law shitbag. So let me ask you 3 questions. Is it better for Dog to legitimately beat Jack without the moon like he said, or for Dog to win because of arbitrary hockey powers? Is it better for Cat to generally beat Candy Boy because he outscales him and avenge Pedro while he's doing it because they're friends or whatever, or should Cat need 16 miracles in a row just to put down someone who's far below him? Is it better for Raizo to showcase a hatred for the Oniwabanshu or whatever the fuck, so lines like this actually make sense and aren't just random shit? Or should Raizo just be an idiot character and win off screen? The answer is obvious. Both options shouldn't have happened no matter what. The Scabbards should have blitzed Jack immediately, Perospero should have lost to Cat on screen, and they should have all dismantled Fuku Dikaru. Oda just chose the worst options possible. I already touched upon most of the Big Mom fight, but this is easily just aura and hype moments. This fight is sloppy nonsense thematically, and from a power scaling perspective, oh Maron, he looks terrible. It doesn't make any sense at all how Big Mom didn't immediately dog walk the fuck out of Mid and Bum. One Ikoku sovereignty would have sent them back to the Stone Age. Everything with Big Mom and Kid here is virtually all garbage. I think Law ironically saves the day. His abilities are very cool and adds layers to his character. He also doesn't need to be so personally connected to Yonko because he is in alliance with Luffy wants to take them down. He also has his own motivation regarding the poneglyph that compounds these things together. Overall, it's not Law's fault why this fight is bad, and it was a foregone conclusion that Law would fight Big Mom in some way anyway. Luffy vs Kaido is the most polarizing part of Wano outside of its ending. When this fight concluded, I don't think anyone knew what to say. Does it make sense? Was it well handled? Did it live up to expectations? For me, Luffy vs Kaido isn't bad, so if you're waiting for that catharsis, then you have to go somewhere else. That being said, I don't think Luffy vs Kaido is good either. Okay. So the very first idea with Luffy vs Kaido we have to get into are the supposed limiters on Kaido. Kaido did not run a gauntlet. The only people who semi-damaged him were Zoro and Yamato. Everyone else was just hitting him with some tricky moves that didn't do anything real. Additionally, the flame clouds have zero evidence to support they were nerfing Kaido in some way. There also isn't some random special anti-demon magic that's being used on Kaido here. So for the most part, Luffy will just straight up 1v1ing Kaido. To facilitate this huge gap in power, Luffy gets 2 different power-ups while being asleep. For me, there is no development to these power-ups. Devil Fruit Awakenings as an idea is very cool and will set up in Punk Hazard with Doflamingo and of course Katakuri, but nonetheless doesn't make it any better for its usage. Luffy straight up dies and awakens his Devil Fruit. The mechanics of this fight aren't as nearly as well established as Oda thinks. Luckily, fights can succeed in other ways that aren't too mechanical, but we'll have to figure that out. Let's get into the major themes of One Piece, those being inherited will, dreams, and the passage of time. On the surface, this fight seems entirely thematically perfect. Luffy inherits the will of the samurai, Luffy inherits the will of the samurai through the passage of time to defeat Kaido's dreams. That makes sense to me. Unfortunately, that is a staple for every major One Piece arc. Guy Pia is just one example. To me, this fight needs to have a lot more than just surface level generic One Piece themes. It seems like that is missing throughout the fight. There's no conflict or back and forth or some type of within this fight. What do I mean? Outside of generally disagreeing with Kaido, there's not nearly enough material to substantiate this dynamic. I already mentioned Katakuri earlier, but the general conflict for that battle was how one bounces back from the problems versus letting it consume them. It is a lot more gratifying in general to have Luffy dismantle a villain's ideology through his fists. What even is Kaido's ideology? Violence? What? Crocodile is a great example of that back and forth. Through their multiple interactions, Crocodile belittles Luffy's dreams. He says pirates like him are a dime a dozen and he's nobody special. Only when he is truly pressed, Crocodile starts leaking some of his reasonings for saying such a thing. When we peel back the layers, we can see his rooted insecurity in a lack of understanding what a pirate is. The back and forth here is that Crocodile's armor is slowly getting chipped down thematically and narratively the more Luffy fights him. Again, to me, this doesn't seem like it's here during the Luffy versus Kaido fight. When Kaido asks Luffy what world will he make, it just feels like vague nonsense. The combat in this fight is also just okay. For me, it obviously peaks when Luffy's in base against drunk Kaido. Other than that, it just feels off tonally and structurally to just have a Looney Tunes gag and Kaido asks Luffy who he is. This is also littered with pacing issues. Chapter 1048 is just a flashback brigade of shit we already know, then Orochi dies. This fight is also very anticlimactic, whether it be through the lack of a thematic through line or real character dynamic or whatever else. When this fight ends, Luffy just overpowers Kaido with a punch that Oda said wasn't gonna happen. Luffy just punches him in a very clean and quiet way. With Arlong, he defeats him by bringing down his entire tower. The final blows are very similar, but his attack against Doflamingo was much better presented. There's nothing to take home with this win outside of Joy Boy fulfilling his prophecy. It feels entirely hollow to me, but if you, yes, you, the audience feel personally moved by this fight, I'm happy for you. If you feel gratified by Luffy punching the person who enslaves all the people of Wano for no reason, then great. Kaido for me is just a punch kick guy with hidden motivations, a broken ideology, and a lot alluded to. He's very dry, and that's likely what makes this fight so weird for me. If certain elements were better, then maybe this would be a home run, but that's not the case.
Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
We just covered the entirety of Wano. Obviously, I skipped several story beats and things, but this was just Wano, and holy shit, it is terrible. I don't know what to say about this arc that could have been better. I don't know what the hell Oda was doing, but one thing I do know is every single problem in this arc. I've devised a color-coded Word doc of every single problem. In this section, we're gonna run through that shit like a linebacker. We'll get into it category by category, and the structure will be as follows. I'll give real arguments for why some of these things are the case, if necessary, or I'll just summarize my points already made. The categories will be world building, problems exclusively in the main cast, logical gaps in this arc, pacing issues, problems with our antagonist cast, problems with our side cast, problems with our structuring or lack thereof inside the plot, and finally miscellaneous, because yes, there are that many problems in this arc. Kinemon dialogue and Punk Hazard and Zoro's backstory all find a sexist idea in Wano that's never addressed inside the arc and is very much contradicted by Kiku's existence. It is never expanded upon why people think Kaido is a deity that protects them. It could be propaganda from Orochi and etc., but it wouldn't be exactly in character for Orochi to glaze somebody else. Plus, you would think an idea like that would have a lot more relevance later on, the same way people thought Crocodile and Doffy were good guys the entire time. We are told people canonize Kaido, then we're shown everyone hates him. Oda, just pick one. You can't have both, pick one. Onigashima itself is implied to be important but never gets expanded upon, and it is some random island completely divorced from the final twist of Wano. We do not learn how or why Wano is known as the land of gold. Onigashima worldbuilding is so arbitrary. Characters like Dendro can hide out for chapters on chapters, Hiyori can find Orochi, Otama can come out of literal thin air, and Kanjo can come inside from the exterior to find the scabbards twice. There is literally no sense of scale for the conflict. Oda omitted stuff about Zoro's connection to Wano for zero reason. Zonisha comes to Wano then immediately leaves. This is bad, pretty obviously, because it doesn't do anything for the story and ends up being a pump fake airball and is incredibly anticlimactic. Toki came from the voice entry, yet it never mattered to Wano one bit at all. Zoro conveniently gets lost on the back of a giant dog before it's time to talk about Sanji leaving the crew. All the Straw Hats get dramatically ignored or do just enough nonsense to where Oda can say he tried. For example, Usopp doesn't do anything in this arc, Jinbei showed up out of the blue in different events like the Ice Oni or Robin vs Black Maria that simply aren't good. Zoro and Hiyori doesn't go anywhere. Zoro being a descendant of Ryuma doesn't go anywhere. Zoro doesn't avenge Yasui. Chopper character assassination. Usopp character assassination. Luffy says he can't go to the roof because Big Mom will follow, then he immediately goes to the roof. Sanji left Nami and Usopp to 2v1 page 1 and ulti. Luffy uses gear 4 to fight a number. Luffy decides to run to the top instead of flying upward with gear 4. Luffy doesn't use Conqueror's Haki to climb the roof despite spamming it in acts 1 and 2. Sanji vs Queen has terrible action. This matters a lot because this is a Yonko crew, not just Jabra or Bon Clay. Chopper doesn't cure Smile Fruits, which he would ideologically detest and hate down to his core. And Nami is drawn with too many panty shots. Keeping their identities hidden doesn't matter to the story at all. Oda says people are strong and etc, but is rarely shown in totality. Fox thinks Zoro is a random. Apu has infinite durability. Alliance doesn't use Tama's abilities to win the war. Hyogoro doesn't die for getting hit by Big Mom despite her being shown to knock out Queen in 2 hockeyless hits. Wano is said to be a natural fortress, but yet anyone can come in and out for the convenience of the plot. Kinemon survives getting hit by Kaido. Enma is the strongest sword ever while not being cursed, blackened, or the highest rank. Ashura Doji has ships and blueprints to Kaido's mansion without it ever being explained. Raizo Water takes out the flame clouds for some oddball reason when the story said they'll only go out if Kaido was defeated. Fake tension port scene. Bombs blow up the Sunny, but not really. Kawamatsu straight up lets Kanjo escape mid-fight right in front of him. Catboy knocks Kaido's Bagua out of his hand despite having 2 hands on it. Yamato was struggling against Sasaki. Orochi snuck out of a room that was not only on fire but filled with trained samurai and ninja. Law is able to move a piece of Big Mom's soul. Tama literally teleports into Usopp's hands while running away from Big Mom. The scabbards left the scabbards deadass left the staircase open to the attic. Zeus survives getting his soul sucked out. CP0 ignores Robin to fight fodder. Zoro sees the Grip Reaper. This isn't the Sopranos or supernatural elements exist in the series. Hallucinations have never had a place in One Piece. World government says they're gonna take over Wano if Kaido loses, but then immediately makes him win. Gorosei assumed the borders will be dropped if Kaido lost, even though they haven't been dropped for over 1,000 years. Green Bull intercepts a call from the Gorosei just to arrive a week later. The protagonists each get a new power-up and hockey blooms or whatever, but the antagonists are held back 50 times to facilitate the narrative. Mihawk is irrelevant in this arc. Hiyori says she doesn't know if Denjo is alive despite being saved by him literally chapters prior. Queen and Who's Who go to kill Drake in the middle of the Fire Festival despite having a week of prep time. Ashura Doji fight starts and ends off screen. Kid escapes prison off screen. Zoro meets Josui off screen. Act 3 has 100 chapters. Chapter 965 takes place across 5 years. There are a million flashbacks during main story events. The Ice Oni. Raizo fights Earlobe. When it wasn't set up in the slightest, it could have just happened off screen. 7 pages of flashbacks during the climactic punch Oda said wasn't going to happen. 4 pages spent on Kid and Luffy 2v1ing fodder. Frankie and Sanji fight fodder for half a chapter. Hawkins is built up as an antagonist throughout all of Act 1 and 2. Despite this build-up, it never reaches an arc, and his role is completely downplayed by the narrative, even down to his rank being a headliner. Law being cheesed by a headliner makes me think he can't even touch the lead performers. People don't know Orochi and Kaido are bad guys, and it's never naturally dispelled, like every other One Piece arc like Alabasta or Dressrosa. Kaido and Orochi wait until after boiling Oden to kill his family. Orochi held Kawamatsu in prison for years. Big Mom didn't kill Kid-in-Law. Big Mom got amnesia. Big Mom randomly fell asleep after getting her memories back. Big Mom goes into mothering mode but doesn't remember her own children at all. Big Mom was doing nothing on the roof. She saw like 3 or 4 attacks while Oda clearly highlighted Kaido as a main threat. Big Mom is in the arc for Luffy, but they literally never land an attack on one another. Big Mom ignores Nami and Usopp to play with Otama. Big Mom saves Luffy, Kid, and Killer. Queen leaves Luffy in jail without cuffs and almost no security. Queen leaves 3 Supernova in jail without his security. Kaido says he must cut off Luffy's head, but the very next time he beats Luffy, he doesn't do it. Orochi had Killer doing GTA missions. This is bad because, as I explained, it doesn't do anything for the plot and it's poorly developed. There's also arguably a missed opportunity because Kawamatsu and Ashura Doji are both still alive, and Orochi could have had Killer hunt them down and fail. Kazunbo is taken out by Big Mom just by looking at it. The justification and motivation for Orochi taking over Wano is weak at best and retconned at most. Kaido doesn't kill Momo. Kaido says he has questions for the survivors of the Kozuki. He did not ask a single question. Kandro being the traitor is poorly handled. Nothing about it is satisfying, although it might be shocking and give the arc some drama. Who's Who versus Queen plotline is dropped. Who's Who ignores Luffy. King and Kaido relationship likely retconned because of the disparity in their interactions. No Tobiropo member meets the expectations set by Ulti. Kandro gets off screen for his first interaction. No one actually kills Kandro during the first interaction. Even though Kandro said he got a fatal wound by 5 different people stronger than him, he was still able to use his Devil Fruit 3 more times and travel from the outside to the inside and find the Skybridge location twice. Frankie ran over Big Mom. Jinbei and Robin play pickleball with Big Mom. A literal monkey, not a joke, a fucking zoo animal, stalls out not 1 Tobiropo member, but 2. Kaido didn't kill the Scabbards despite wanting to erase the Kozuki. Jack goes to kill the Scabbards yet lets all of them run past him. Orochi's design. Hawkins has a straw doll of Kid out of literally thin air. Page 1 gets stalemated by Nami, Usopp, and Tama despite having cracked durability and endurance. Page 1 and OT are in jail for the crimes and brutality. The Scabbards don't actually care about protecting Momo. I could write a mountain on this, but the clearest example is all of them grabbing onto Kaido's crotch and climbing to the roof instead of freeing him from his chains. OT drops Nami right before she gets hit and I can't fucking believe this, bruh. OT deadass dropped Nami right before she got hit by Big Mom's attack that was in her chest. So she didn't use Nami, the person you want to kill, to tank it. She just dropped her. Thank you, Oda. Hawkins versus Killer is impossible to read coherently. Ame no Habikiri is never unsheathed despite being the sword to defeat Orochi in the mythos. I don't understand how a writer creates a 1-to-1 parallel with another story but fails to follow through. Kazunbo attacks Orochi. Kaido's character isn't real. Sukiyaki should have died to Orochi. Sukiyaki should have died to illness, but Oda pretty much retconned it. Kaido says there'll never be samurai better than Oden and is never proven wrong. Queen threw his fight against Sanji because of pussy he couldn't get. Ashura Doji actively steals and kills from the people of Wano, this is the most indefensible feat possible. Ashidoji didn't literally kill the woman, but not only did he say that he would, he put a knife to her face. This could easily be an empty threat, but he is actively stealing food from the people of Wano. Look at this page where this mother has a knife to her and her child's face because they have nothing to eat, and tell me that Ashidoji isn't actively helping killing Wano just like the Beast Pirates. You can't argue against it. There's no way out of this one. Ashidoji is a retard, and Oda retconned this entire character. Kid has Conqueror's Haki but never uses it in an arc around Will and Spirit. Hiyori's character is vapid and she contradicts herself with only lines of dialogue. The Scabbers are not serious about liberating Wano, just rewatch the entire video. Kiku's fake out death, no character arc for Yamato, doesn't change or learn anything at all. Suru was implied to be dead and this was a motivator for Kinemon, but this is all just bait. Kid doesn't like alliances, but in a week he's in one. Yamato defusing the bombs is useless. Kid escaped prison off screen just to get captured again in breakneck speeds. Scabbers save for Odin instead of for Wano. No one in the Scabbers suspect there's a traitor. Whitebeard character assassination. The bond between the Scabbers and Odin isn't real at all. Shinobu infinite speed stats. Denjiro doesn't kill Sasaki. Kara and Wanda lost a 2v1 in the Sulong form. Kat lost to Parasparrow. Ashidoji died to a couple firecrackers. Kid and Killer don't want to beat Big Mom. Kiku gets hit by Kanjuro. Kid contradicts himself 30 times while fighting Big Mom. Dog and Cat need God in order to beat Fodder. Hiyori goes to Onigashima, which should damn near be impossible. Raizo has a paralysis jutsu and never uses it during the entire story arc. Denjiro hid the entire war. Kid should have killed Apu. Scabbers get defeated by Kaido, yet still have enough strength and stamina to do whatever they want. Kiku says she has something to say to Shinobu, but that's either forgotten about, off-screened, or retconned. Nidai Katetsu sword doesn't go anywhere. Borders don't get opened, even though it was shown to us that it was going to happen in Act 1. Kazuki and Kazumi conflict isn't resolved. Onigashima never gets in view of the flower capital. That's like the Buster Call at Eni's lobby not being summoned, or Madara never getting the 10 tails. One expects these things to reach the height of the drama, then the heroes stop it. Law versus Hawkins is never paid off. Themes of community and Luffy and Zoro caring for the people of Wano ring completely hollow because the citizens didn't know a battle was being fought for them. Zoro has blood ties to Wano, but that's completely forgotten and ignored in this arc. This arc tells you non-stop that pirates will betray each other, but there is literally nothing of the sort that happens. Witching Our Boy plot is convoluted and useless. Sword literally did nothing in Wano. Incredibly unnatural exposition for Odin. Odin versus Ashidoji off-screened. Shirley and Roger. Higurashi Death Note clone fruit. Shinobu isn't put on trial despite being seen fighting with the Scabbers. Odin could escape prison anytime he wants. Hyogoro says he can't imagine losing. Sasaki was freed because Big Mom was rolling. Pluton retconned in Wano. Odin could not have gotten the Poneglyph without seeing his father. And capturing Yamato never goes anywhere. Marco says he has a message for Luffy, but they literally never interact in the arc. Wano has negative structuring. Act 3 is 100 full chapters and doesn't make sense naturally because the other two acts were 30 chapters at most. Most of the things that happen in Act 2 can literally be erased and nothing would change. Like Hiyori as a character, Hiyori meeting Zoro, that can literally be erased and what would change. Actually, when I think about it, add another, I'm just off script, I'm thinking about it right now, add another plot hole. Queen did not go to check on Udon prison for an entire week. Despite being the Commodore and big boss of the prison, he calls in one time, asks if they're okay. They lie, say they are okay, and he doesn't check on it and for another week. How do you not check upon the prison you own for an entire week? What are you doing, bro? Queen fights Big Mom because of food. Both cover stories in Wano make past arcs worse. In the first one, it shows Pound being alive. Pound can literally never be alive based on the situation and what was shown. On the other hand, Caesar was able to escape Whole Cake Island easier than Luffy and the crew, subsequently devaluing the feat that Luffy pulled off. The Scabbards use Black Lightning. The paneling is completely garbage. This is nothing new for Oda in One Piece. The tone throughout Onigashima is incredibly cheerful and happy-go-lucky. Characters don't believe they can lose, the alliance aren't pressed, and even before Kaido's defeat, there weren't too many actual threats. Crying faces kill the actual emotion behind scenes. Drake lets Law go and leaves Hawkins alive. A week later, Queen decides to handle it in the middle of a war. He literally knew about it before the Fire Festival. Why is it happening here? Dendro gets his face changed because of literal plot magic and nothing else. Zoro and Sanji appear on live TV and it doesn't matter toward keeping their identities hidden. The counter to ice is fire, guys. Some of the worst dialogue ever. Orochi is never serious about driving the country off a cliff. It's only really Kaido's forces that do everything bad. At most, we see that he was maybe snatching up people and fed people laced fruit. Orochi didn't stop the alliance because of an arbitrary time discrepancy. The numbers don't matter one bit. Arbitrary fodder giants that only make other people look intimidating could erase them from the arc, and literally, I swear to God, nothing would change. Raizo is really stupid. Okay, I'm sitting down on the ground for this one, having my mic in my hand, and for these longer videos, you guys know the drill. Like, if you watch the video, also thank you for, I don't know, I'm getting beside myself. For these longer videos, you guys know the drill. I usually just have the "Can you feel the sunshine" playing while I, just talk over it. But I did not write an outro. Like, sometimes I write an outro, like for the DSI video, I wrote an outro, but it's freestyle. But I usually try to write an outro, but I didn't this time. I didn't want Wano to take up any more of my time. This is like my second, third time mentioning it, maybe, but this entire arc, whenever things are bad, like Attack on Titan or this arc, it's usually a Brandolini's Law, I'm sure you guys have seen, biggest example ever, right? One of the worst videos on YouTube is The Legend of Korra is garbage, and here's why. It's filled with a whole bunch of objectively wrong statements, lies, misinformation, like very weirdly interpreted, disingenuous statements. Like, I mean, they try to say that Zuko is exactly like Mako, but outside of being firebenders and being a bit more stoic. They're literally nothing alike in the slightest. So like I'm saying, like, that video is crazy terrible, right? Crazy terrible. It's like an hour and 30 minutes long, but guess what? The person that made a full debunk, like debunked the entire video from start to finish, their video is 5 hours long. They made a 5-hour long video to debunk and talk about a video that was like an hour and 30 minutes long. That is what a Brandolini's Law is. It's essentially where you have to spend infinitely more time just to discuss the shit that's wrong than to actually make something that's wrong. And it's the most headache inducing thing ever. You guys could hear it throughout Act 4. I was losing my fucking mind. I'm telling you, the whole kid thing, the swords with the Odin, everything within this arc, man, it didn't need to happen. Why did it happen? It's so much fluff, so much nonsense. I've never seen it happen before. At least with Attack on Titan, there was a goal, a direction. It was just objectively, categorically wrong, but there was a direction. In this arc, Oda just deadass wrote anything he wanted without any sense of coherence ever. I was watching a Mords video, and Mords is one of my favorite YouTubers, period, regardless of his takes on Wano. I think he's an incredibly smart, really cool guy. I mean, folks will deadass call him an idiot and call him retarded and etc. And he'll be like, alright, bro, okay, I guess. Like, he's pretty cool dude, to be honest. Mords, he said how he feels as if Wano was Oda trying everywhere. He feels as if in Wano, Oda tried his hardest to reach a certain Japanese reference, like the story of Momotaro. I'm sure if you know anything about Wano, you know about the story of Momotaro, or Momo defeats a Oni Kaido with the help of like a dog, monkey, and pheasant or whatever. And that right there, like the story of the monkey, dog, and the pheasant with Momotaro, that's just Luffy, Hiyori, and Yamato. But the thing is, Yamato and Hiyori aren't relevant characters. You would think they would be relevant. Like, Yamato is like the biggest self-insert character I've ever seen, ever. Like, do you think it's natural for Yamato to know about Luffy's dream? To know what the King of the Pirates said? To read Odin's diary? Like, again, I already made a very solid argument for why Yamato should not, did not exist prior to Oda saying so. You know? Yamato did not exist prior between Oda just saying that they did. Because if Yamato really did exist, we would have saw any inkling of that in the flashback. Within the Odin flashback, with the castle and everything, but we don't. Again, I caught up to One Piece just to make sure all my arguments were solid during the creation of this video. And while I caught up to One Piece, I realized something. This current flashback we're on in Elbaf with rocks and everything like that, this, like, I did as go, who the fuck wrote Wano? If Oda is able to do something like this with rocks, who the fuck wrote Wano? Like, it's like a fever dream. If you guys follow me on Twitter at all, I say it all the time. Oda, before he had a needle in his head, was something crazy. Oda still has a needle in his head for sure, but I think it's not poking so deep into his brain anymore. Because Elbaf is looking crazy good. I like Elbaf. I like Elbaf infinitely more than Wano. I think Elbaf is shaping up to be a best arc in the post-time skip. Right now it's probably Egghead, then Dressrosa, but yeah. So I just like, Oda can write Elbaf, but then he fails to write Wano, which is infinitely more important. I just don't get it. Yeah, thank you for watching the video though. More intimate stuff. I woke up today, went to the bathroom. Started eating. Went to the bathroom. And as I'm sitting on the toilet, I open up my phone and I see that I have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't know how, but I have 1,000 subscribers. And appreciate that. You know, I really do, want to thank everyone who watches and enjoys the videos. I know my content's a little bit more abrasive, a little bit more weird. Like, I'm kind of just like a black dude that just talks in the mic and then shows some images on screen. Yeah. But I really do appreciate all of it. Like, it's over a year that it was around April. It was around April that I said I'm actually going to make YouTube videos. And I don't know why I wanted to. I just felt like, I had to. And this is not supposed to be, I'm not giving like a Naruto backstory. Like, we're not on a swing set right now where I'm just, explaining that. But I definitely feel like my first video was the Unohana video, and I definitely feel like this YouTube thing was not meant for me per se. Yeah, I want to say meant for me. Not meant for me in this big old like RDC, I'm gonna be like the biggest YouTuber ever type of thing, but it's almost like it's natural. Like, it's natural for me to write, record, and edit analysis videos. It's natural for me to write, record, and edit critique videos, talk about the media I consume and the things I like, things I dislike. I feel like that's completely natural for me. So I'm glad that this natural thing for me can show a lot of good ramifications, like me getting 1,000 subscribers. So I'd like to thank everyone. There's a couple people in my head that instantly come to mind. I guess, like I said, this is not on a script. I'm literally just talking into the mic with the Can You Feel the Sunshine playing. I hope I'm not talking too long, because I have to like put it twice. But a couple people that come to mind. I forgot his name. That one dude that name starts with like a D, like Dojunus, whatever. The dude that's saying for him to make the Naruto video. I already told you, bro. If you're watching, I already told you Naruto videos coming in like a month. Just let me pick a topic between these 2-3 things I have in my head. Then I'll start writing it like this week. So yeah, thanks for you watching. The other guy, like Lord something. Sometimes sometimes it's a little aggravating seeing you in the comments, because you are a little passionate, but I appreciate your continuous support, especially like the ALT videos, especially with the ALT video. I know you were like you were waiting on that shit, and it surprised me how fast you were you were there to like watch all of it. So I appreciate that. Another dude, I'm kind of forgetting his name right now, but I promise I'm forgetting your name. I don't exactly remember all these people's names, but it's familiar to me. Another dude I think has like a C in his name. Appreciate you. You seem like a pretty good supporter. And notice I'm not saying fans. I don't have any fucking fans, bro. I'm not like, fans implies I'm famous and shit. Like, no, bro. I just appreciate people who click on the video and watch whatever, how much ever they like. You know, this is not a big secret or anything like that. I make the videos for myself. Like, I make videos for myself, and not to say that it's like selfish, but like when I made the Sopranos video I made about like a month or two ago, I made that for myself because I love The Sopranos, and it has like no views. It took me a good bit to make, and then I had to get like the copyright claim disputed. And then it has like no views. It has like 125, and I guarantee I'm about like 25 of the views, you know? So I'm like 1/5 of the views. So it has like 100 views at most. I don't care though. I don't care. Cause you know, some people like it, some people don't really care for it that much. I love the video. I think it's one of my best videos to date. If you know anything about The Sopranos, if you watch The Sopranos as a kid, even if you TikTok watch The Sopranos, you can just watch that video and still completely understand the different nuances and shades of the characters that are pretty much unrecognized for the most part. With that being said, I'm gonna take a sip of this Arizona, and we're gonna take off. Hold on. All right. Alright. Yeah, this video should be out soon. Like, I mean, I just finished recording all of it. Editing shouldn't be too time consuming. So, thank you guys for watching, and yeah, I'll see you. Next video coming out in probably a week. Like, I mean, I'm being so serious. I'll probably have like a little smaller video coming out in about a week. But yeah, thanks for watching. All that shit.